Life's a ride, so let's make it count. Cherish every moment, that's what it's about. Tune in, together we're building our groove. Every beat, every laugh, we're ready to move. A little laughter, some love, we're soaring high. Every single episode reaching for the sky. News on the airwaves, spreading good vibes. Friends together, watch how our spirits rise. Kick back, unwind, leave the troubles behind. This podcast is gold, the treasure you'll find. With every word, we'll light up your day. Join the conversation, let's laugh all the way. A little laughter, some love, we're soaring high. Every single episode reaching for the sky. News on the airwaves, spreading good vibes. Friends together, watch how our spirits rise. Kick back, unwind, leave your troubles behind. This podcast is gold, a treasure you'll find.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Good afternoon, Arctic. How are you, sir?
I'm here, still breathing, so that's a plus.
Yeah, usually. Got something going on, or you're not feeling good again, or what's the deal, bro?
Dude, I've got a sinus infection in my sinus passages and it's in my eyes. I'm on antibiotic eye drops and an oral antibiotic right now.
Good God. In your eyes, too?
Yeah. That's remember when I told you that I was having a lot of problem with that sleep coming out of my eyes? Well,
Yeah.
that's what it was. I've got a sinus infection in my eyes, and that's why I'm having a hard time even just reading chats and stuff right now. That's why I didn't record anything the past 2 or 3 days.
Wow, dude. I've never heard of it getting that bad. That's crazy. Hey, Mom, is it getting any better at all, or?
I mean, it is what it is. I was able to put some shorts out today, and I did one cold case premiere. I'm trying to record a bunch of them so I can have them set to premiere at 4 o'clock every single day, and I'll work on that here in a little bit. So,
Wow. Welcome, Mama Bear and Mom. Hello, everybody.
Morning.
morning.
My mother said that she talked to somebody. It's not so bad here, but she has a friend that lives in Wisconsin or somewhere like that. There's a bunch of states that there's some kind of a sinus thing that's been going around that's like next level viral type weird shit that's going on. I wonder if that's partly what you got going on.
I'm sure. I mean, and it doesn't help because, the rheumatoid arthritis affects my immune system. So I catch everything.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, there's some bad stuff. I mean, we all knew that. Everybody been getting sick, this and that. But she said that. Then I watched the news early this morning, and they showed a map of these states that have all these respiratory and sinus issues going on. And 75% of them aren't the big C. It's all this other stuff that, norovirus and, of course, RSV. And then there's a few others a couple names that were new to me. And I'm like, no wonder I'm still feeling funky. My head still hurts here and there. My sinuses are still all screwed up, but I'm making it through that. I don't have anything in my eyes. That's nuts.
That's why I texted you yesterday if you had a headache, because I've had a headache for the last 2 days, so I thought maybe yours came back.
Well, see, and that's the thing. My headache has gone away. I don't feel it. I don't have a headache at all. But, when I start talking, my throat starts getting scratchy and stuff. And then, like I said, my big problem right now, if I can get it to clear up out of my eyes, I'll be feeling worlds better. But
Not bad.
Please do, because that's anything you get in your eyes is kind of dangerous, obviously. So
I drove to Texas and back like that, so I guess I'll be okay.
That's crazy, man. Just get better. That's all. Jesus. How are you, Mom?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm here.
Well, that's good. You've been MIA.
Well, between the sinus stuff and other stuff going on here, yeah, it's been interesting. Few days for sure. I'll say that much. But I'm here now. I couldn't go yesterday I was almost here yesterday, but there's some things that that are going around or going on that I had to deal with personally, so I couldn't do it. So my apologies, everybody. Um, hopefully we can get that pushed along and get through that and keep going. That's all I can try to do is keep going forward. That's about all. How are you? Are you feeling okay?
Who, me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel fine.
good, good. Well, I'm just making sure everybody else is sick. So
No, I had it last week. Yeah. Which I get a sinus infection and all that shit every time we come back from Kentucky. It's worse in the summertime, but I always get it in the wintertime too.
the change of the atmosphere, maybe.
It's the elevation and the different pollens and stuff.
Gotcha, gotcha. And Mama Bear, you have some size of sinus too for you, or just
Yeah. Just the temperature went way up to 30s, 40s, and then it dropped to 20s, 10s.
yeah, it's colder than colder as hell out here today. And tomorrow's supposed to be worse, I guess. So
And we're sitting at 10, so we're not as bad as I thought we were going to be.
we're cold as hell. I have my furnace on 74 right now, which is like, good God, what are you doing? It'd usually be a sauna in here, and it's not. I think it's 5 or 6 here, and then with the wind chill, they're saying it's like minus something real feel. I don't know. All I know is I'm not going out there. I'll stay in here.
Oh, wow, Coco.
Yeah, she's same, like right down the road from me, so we're probably right around the same.
It's like, well, it's 26 here, I think, but it feels like 15. And then last night it got down to 15 and felt like 6. So
It was cold last night, cold. Like I walked past my front door and like froze for about 10 seconds because it was that cold. I got an old ass wood front door that
I had to take Ghost out at 2:30 this morning, and it was 2 degrees.
Yeah, like, I think I probably would have cleaned up pee. I wouldn't have went outside. Sorry, I'm just saying. He'd have been like, you just go ahead in that back room there and do your little thing, buddy, because I'm going
that's
back.
What they make puppy pads for.
Right, it is.
Right? See, my dog will stare at me like I'm crazy if I try to put them outside right now. They've got their puppy pads, and as long as they go on those, I'm okay.
It is way too cold for that. It's too cold for them to go out. Both of them looked at me like I was insane this morning when I put them outside, and they were like, boom, down the stairs, and they were right back up at the door. I'm ready, doing the little happy dance because their paws were probably freezing.
Yeah.
So they've been out 3 times today, which is half the time they normally go out, and they don't seem to even have to. They're holding it, I think, because they don't want to go out. So they'll usually tell me I gotta go. They'll go to the door, or they'll run up to me and like nudge my leg or something. They're not bothering me at all. They're all curled up in balls. Well, right now they're fighting again. Actually, no. What happened? Where's your brother at? Did you beat him up again? They're just staring at me now. Anyway. Anyway, so yeah, they're not bothered about it, and I'm watching. I told Caden because Caden's home from school till they called him off of school till Thursday yesterday.
Oh wow!
So they knew first off we were getting snow, which we did, and the cold temperature. So they didn't have school today. We knew because today's Martin Luther King Day.
Right.
And then
Well, today's Martin Luther King Day, but typically when they have snow and stuff, don't they do what they do here and just make them do school from home?
Yeah, but because they're not bringing the teachers or nothing into the building, they don't have anybody to run the curriculum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess they're not that far advanced where they can run that from home. And I was like, well, okay. But he still has stuff that he can do that he's behind on a little bit from his math from last year that he's still catching up on because they have to have so many credits. That one credit he's still fighting with from some algebra 2 class or something. So he got that to work on here and there. But
you know what they're doing here that I think is a great idea that I think every school system should implement? They are making our seniors starting this next year, they have to do 75 hours of community service as part of their criteria to meet graduation requirements.
Wow. Okay. That's different.
Well, I think it really is a good idea. I mean, think about how, I mean, they can sit there and go out into the community, visit the old folks' homes and things like that. I mean, they're not dictated on how they have to do it, but it does help to prepare them for going out into the workforce if they volunteer at like a veterans thrift store or something. I mean,
Right. And if they choose to go clean up the environment or something, that teaches them that too. So it's a good idea. I agree with you. Absolutely great idea. Teaches some kind of responsibility, at least, at the
oh,
very least.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. That moment passed. I don't have no idea what I'm gonna
I'm sorry.
no. I was just thinking of something right then and there, and if you know how I am, if I don't say it, it's gone. What the hell was it? Sorry. There it goes again. It's been too long. Anyway, Monday we knew that they were off because of Martin Luther King Day. Then they messaged us last night and said that they were off Wednesday. And I'm like, well, what about Tuesday? About 2 hours ago, we got that they are off tomorrow too. Like, what are you doing? Like, make up your. I don't know if he had to wait to see what the weather was going to be like today or whatnot. But I think the new superintendent knows he screwed up because he gave them 3 snow days already that they probably didn't need. They weren't that bad, you know. And now they have to take these ones because some teachers, from my understanding, said we ain't coming because a lot of these teachers live up near Cleveland and a couple of them live in the Pittsburgh area, and they said we're not driving that far if it's going to be this bad. And I guess this morning the roads were pretty bad here, according to my son when my wife went to work. So, excuse me. I guess I don't know. I know the Floridians don't have to worry about all this stuff right now, but I heard Texas and somewhere else might be getting some of this too. Can't remember where. Y'all swan birds or whatever that, what, not swans, but what is the flamingos down there in Florida don't have this kind of stuff going on right now, do you?
I'm in Orlando, so I don't get to see any of it. But, you know, up around like Tallahassee and the Panhandle and all that up there, which they're not really Florida anyway. They're just a mixture.
Right.
So they don't even really count up there. They see snow.
Oh, Mom, while I'm thinking about it, before I forget, have you seen the missing Noah Page, 20 years old, missing out of Fort Lauderdale?
No.
I did a report on him this morning. I think they said he's got a traumatic brain injury. And so, yeah, he needs to get his face out there. I need to share all my shorts out to the groups. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So,
did you put it up on your page?
oh yeah.
I'll share it from here. How did he go missing with a traumatic brain injury?
Dude, your guess is as good as mine. Let me pull his flyer up on my phone.
How old is he, by the way? That's the biggest question, I think.
He's 20.
Okay. So he was probably out and about, but I got it. I thought it was a child at first. Like, real quick here, let's see who we got. Brutally Honest, welcome back. Southern Gal, True Crime, welcome back, Dawn. Good to see you. Miss Kel knows what I'm going through here. Neighbor, good to see you. This case, Kelly, that we're working on should be real close to where you're at, too. Miss Dandy Powell, welcome. Good to see you today. Tomboy, welcome. I got Tomboy in here. Can tell you I'm late now, and we know Tomboy's up and about. Let's see. I had a doctor's appointment, by the way, guys. That's why we're so late today. Of course, Mind and Monster sitting up here with us, gracing us with her awesome presence. Julian Quaterio, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you very much. Shelby Jarosz, Jarosz. Thank you so much for being here. Dial-Up Dreamers in the house. Welcome and great to have you here. Of course, Arctic Fox up here with also Mama Bear. Thank you all 3 of you guys for joining me today. What a treat. Miss Taylor, welcome back to you. Great to see you. Miss Jana's in the house. Good to see you today, dear. Thank you for being here with us. Willie Will, good to see you, Willard. Thank you for joining us today, brother. Great to have you here. Lisa Joe. Thank you for being here, Lisa Joe. Good to see you. I know there's a few other peeps in here that I saw. Hold on a minute. We finally got a eye appointment, so I'll be getting glasses because God knows I can't see nothing at all that I'm looking at right now.
Oh Lord, I've been having to like zoom in my screen on my computer to 150% to be able to read anything when I'm recording. So
Yep.
No.
I get it. Sassy Cassie, hello, Miss Cassie. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Wait a minute. Bama Cat. Hey, good to see you. Good to have you here. If that's Bama Cat for Alabama, then roll tide, roll tide. Great to have you here. 1 second, I think. Please refer to upper finger comment. Upper middle finger. Listen, you're never in here in the mornings because you're usually sleeping. I get it. Because you stay up so late. So I know I'm late if you're in here, is what I'm saying. Please refer to upper. You're too funny to me. Swear to God. It is. Oh, sorry. There it is. The Noah page. Noah page is missing. Got it. In the chat. Thanks, Mom, for dropping that in there.
Good job, Candy.
What did Candy do?
She woke her up.
Oh, you woke her up. Aha. See, I wasn't wrong. Back to you. I'll use the Frank finger, as I call it. Anyway, the case that we're looking at today is it's 60 years old, you guys. There's SRBBBB. The BBBBB. Good to see you, dear. Thank you for joining us. Out of Garfield Heights in Ohio here. She was murdered 60 years ago with zero answers to this, guys. 60. I don't know how you can go 60 years without having anything on a case, okay? And I'm sure I think it's pretty close to where you're at, Kelly. Garfield Heights. I think it's right outside of I think it's west of Cleveland, to be honest with you, and it's real close. So I know it's not too far from me, so it's probably that's what I thought, closer to you. 15 minutes, gotcha. And I'm about double that away from it. So but 60 years, I looked at this one and I said, this is weird. And these stories with these cases are just sometimes you got it. Well, we know that law enforcement slips up on these and drops the ball on some of these, but some of these are like, what the hell happened here? You know what I mean? So, yep, Bedford. That's very close there. Absolutely. So I thought this would be a good one to look into. The last two we've looked at have been really interesting for sure and definitely need the attention. So this one, I figured 60 years, something needs to happen somewhere.
oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's the main reason why, I like to focus on some of these cold cases on my channel is because, I mean, these families, they go all this time, they pass on without ever getting any closure and everything. And,
Right.
it's horrible.
Yeah. And a lot of these cases, well, like this, for instance, 60 years later, most of her family's gone. That's very sad because there's no answers to what happened to Beverly. And these people, like you said, they pass away with no closure, no answers, no justice, no nothing. And that's just not right. So for the family members that are left, they deserve anything any of us can give them or help to give them for closure, So it's just sad. It's really sad that there's that much time has gone by. Hell, I was 10 years before I was born that this happened, and there's been not one answer since. I don't get that. So we're definitely going to look into that one. We got 23 peeps in the house, 21 likes. Let's see if we can make that match, guys. And I don't think I missed anybody in chat. Did you find that article, what you were talking about for Noah?
Hold on.
The age or whatever it was?
I put the short in chat.
Oh, okay. He was looking for, I think, an age, or not an age, but I don't remember. It's okay. Don't worry about it, Mom. I'm going to play that first then. And there it is. Thank you. I'll play that first to give it the exposure, and then we'll roll into the cold case. You're okay, dial up. Don't worry about it. Okay, guys, give me one moment here to set this up. By the way, I got that whole fit thing I was telling you guys about, that program. Sorry about that. My doctor found coupons for that stuff, that Wegovy stuff. So we are gonna go with that. So I may look like a skeleton here soon. What's happening, big guy? Good to see you. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Hopefully it works and it doesn't cause any other problems.
He said, "What up, D-Dog?"
He's a trip. I love that dude. Okay, this is it here. Noah Page out of Fort Lauderdale. I've seen this kid's face before. How long has he been missing?
If the screen shakes when the gun shoots, you're afraid.
Hold on. I can't.
What is?
I can't touch anything. I make mistakes. Welcome, Miss Paula. Okay. Let me know how the audio is, guys. Let's check this out. Thank you, Arctic, for putting this together, brother.
No problem. What is going on, guys? This is Arctic Fox. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at the missing.
Are you guys hearing that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Person's case of 20-year-old Noah Page, who is missing out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Noah was last seen on the 16th of January, 2025 at around 7 p.m. near Ocean Boulevard, just south of Commercial Boulevard. Noah is 5'7" tall and weighs 120 pounds with brown hair that has blonde highlights and brown eyes. Noah was last seen wearing a gray sweatshirt, black jogger pants, and carrying a yellow sweatshirt and a Walgreens bag. Noah is missing and endangered due to mental health concerns following a brain injury. His family describes him as a very kind and sweet young man. He is new to the area and does not have his phone or his ID with him. His family is very concerned for his safety and his well-being. Anyone with information on Noah or his whereabouts is asked to contact the Fort Lauderdale Police at 954-828-5700, or you can contact his father, Todd, at 630-768-9381, or his mother, Lisa, at 630-215-3051.
Okay, so 20 years old out of Fort Lauderdale, traumatic brain injury, no ID, no phone. This is scary.
Not familiar with the area, has the mental capacity of a 10-year-old.
That's very scary. So anybody could have taken advantage of this kid, without fail. This is a damn shame. He was last seen January 16th, 2025. It's just a few days out now. Just south of Commercial Boulevard, 5'7", weighs 120 pounds. Very good looking kid. Like I said, anybody could have taken advantage of this kid. Especially with his mentality. And it doesn't give any kind of specifics as to how he went missing or why.
No, unfortunately. And, of course, one of those cases where there's no silver alert issued for him, which I feel there should be. So there's that. I mean,
yeah, traumatic brain injury. Of course there should be, 100%.
It's like I covered a girl this morning out of Memphis, Tennessee. And you know how they are, left without permission and failed to return home. Well, she left with an older man and there's no Amber Alert out for her.
I'll never understand it. Makes no sense to me. That's a good question. I wonder if they check the homeless camps in that area. How much, mom, how much of that is there around the Florida areas as far as homeless camps and stuff? Is there a lot?
Is there a lot?
Are there a lot of homeless camps down in these different areas in Florida? I don't know if it's the same as up north here because of where the locations are or not. I'm just wondering.
So I'll put it this way. There are more homeless camps here than there are hotels.
Damn.
Like Daytona Beach, like literally when you go to Daytona Beach, the beach is covered with people that are unhoused. They have public showers that are meant to like wash the sand off. And a lot of them use those public showers. They hang out there. They wash their clothes there. Like it's
and
bad.
the weather's not it doesn't get super cold usually, they can be out in the elements. Okay.
Yeah,
I
people
would
they come down here thinking, that it's the land of promise, and there's not really any. It's hard to get a job down here because it's overpopulated. I mean, I'll be totally
Well,
honest with you.
not only that, but even if you do find work, the cost of living in Florida is
yes,
insane.
yes.
Yeah, and the
It's
cost of living's crazy, and there's not like resources down here like there is up north. Like you don't have the types of resources that you have down here
hmm
that you do up there. You go to like a mission or something like that, and they run your name to see if you have warrants. If you've got a warrant, the police come and get you. So a lot of people, they stay on the beaches. Like they have like the
yeah.
resorts have like stairways that go down to the beach. You'll see people camped out under those. I mean,
I,
it's very sad down here. And when we lived in Daytona, I lived a block away from the beach, and there was like a brick wall out in front of our place that led to Seabreeze, which is the main street in
it's a
Daytona.
break wall. Right.
And, they'd be lined up down there, absolutely lined up. And we would take them like food and water and, you know, extra clothes that we had and, stuff like that. And I'd go down there and talk to them. Me and Tater would go down there and talk to them, and we'd actually know a few of them's names. And what the sad part is a lot of people that are homeless here, believe it or not, are our veterans.
Yep.
See, she's right, guys, because I lived in New Smyrna. I was a teenager though, and I could ride a bike to Daytona Beach from where I was at. She's right there, and that was back in 90, 92, 93. And I thought I was a kid, I was stupid, and thought they were like beach bums, like surfer dudes, because a lot of them did have surfboards and stuff. But then you go down there at nighttime, these people are sleeping down there and stuff like that. So I didn't even realize that. I thought they just hung out on the beach like that. I didn't think they actually had a lot of them that were, veterans and encampments and stuff like that. That's sad.
Yeah, dude, I had a sun deck. Like where we lived at in Daytona, we had a huge sun deck on the back with some of my shorts, my earlier shorts and videos. You can see my sun deck.
hmm
And I'd come out in the morning, and there would be people out there asleep on my porch.
That's a bit much, right?
Mhm.
Wow.
And then, like, if you're an addict down here, we have a lot of sober communities. But the thing about the sober communities is you have to piss clean to get into the sober community. So, and then they charge like $600 to get in.
Jesus.
Good God. So there's no help,
So it's
basically.
easy just to live on the beach or in the woods. Like
hmm
it's absolutely insane. It is truly insane. And like where I live at, within, I'd say, I live on a private road, so 10 minutes to town. And I'd say within, I don't know, 3 miles, there's homeless camps in the woods.
Thank you, Kelly. And that's scary too, Mom, because Florida's known for the gators and the wood. The wooded areas usually are surrounded with swamps, and depending on where you live, of course. But I mean, that would make me nervous. You have to compete with not only living in the elements, but you got gators and things out there too that you got to hide from, and that's crazy to me.
Gators, panthers, bears,
Panthers, right?
coyotes. Like there's more than just gators in the woods. Like it's not a fun place to live.
A silver community, is that a
Sober community.
Oh, she said sober. That's what I thought she said.
A silver
Oh.
community would be a 55 and up, where you have to be 55 or up to live in
Yeah.
them.
We've
Mhm.
got those here too.
That's actually my aunt and uncle who I moved down there with when I did. They lived in one. It was like a trailer park type place, but way
That's
nicer.
what the one here is too. It's trailer parks, and unfortunately, it's not nice. The trailer parks they got look like they came out of the 1970s, the Brady Bunch era. And I don't understand. I feel bad for the old people, but they go there because they can't afford anything else. So.
It's expensive, right? Well, and then that's who I moved in with. They lived there for 1 year, hated it because you couldn't have animals, you couldn't do this, you weren't even allowed to cut your own grass. They had a 3x5 patch of grass. The park maintenance crew had to do it, and they had to do this and do this and do that. And they were senior citizens at that point, and they were like, we can't do this anymore. My uncle was, retired from the railroad because he fell. My aunt was retired, this and that. They were older people. And they were supposed to be like, they wanted to be able to just enjoy their home and their own property. My aunt liked to put flowers in. You weren't allowed to do that. So they moved out and they found a house. Like I said, it was directly like you step out the front door, walk across the road, and then you step down those stairs and you were on the beach at New Smyrna. Sadly, the part of the New Smyrna they lived on was Shark Bite Central down there by the one break wall, and it was bad. It was bad. You don't swim in that water too often down there. So
I don't get in the water, period, especially not in New Smyrna.
Yeah, there's a lot of shark bite stuff that happens down there. I think it's whatever that break wall was. I can't remember the name of it. There was always beach patrol and ambulances down there because somebody was always getting nicked or bit, or the sharks they just loved it over there for some reason. I don't know if it's because there was so much meat down in there for them, but still.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, shoot. You couldn't pay me in an area that has sharks and gators to go swimming in any body of water that's not a swimming pool.
Well, I would always head. Go ahead, Mom.
I don't get in the ocean. After the shark incident, I don't get in the ocean. Too close for comfort. I won't get back in it.
See, I would go
about ankle deep, and that's it.
I would go all the way up the other end, New Smyrna, up heading towards Daytona, basically. And it wasn't so bad up there, but that's still the end of the last part of the time that I lived there. It was August, and I don't know if it was stingray or manta ray mating season or some shit. That's that little story I told you guys last year where I walked out into the water, and my buddy from there was like, "Don't move." He was about 100 yards down, yelled at me, "Don't move." And I looked down, and there were thousands of them swimming around me, and I flipped out. And ever since then, I wouldn't go back in the ocean. So nothing happened, but I didn't know what they were going to do, and there was too many of them for me to be comfortable. So I just said nope, and that was the end of it. No, Mosquito Lake will give you diseases, Walt. That's how I ended up with meningitis, because I went in that lake. They call it meningitis lake. They don't call it Mosquito Lake anymore because it's that nasty. That's local here, guys. So, but yeah, I didn't realize that the homeless situation was that bad down in Florida. But this was how many years ago that I was down there, and it didn't seem. It's probably 10 times worse now than it was then. So,
oh, I'm sure. I do want to just quickly mention, Mom did an amazing live last night on Jaden Donaldson, and I'm going to drop a petition demanding justice for Jaden in the chat. If everyone would go sign it, I'd greatly appreciate it.
please do. I missed that whole thing. So pissed off.
Thank you, Arctic. And Arctic made a beautiful petition, and I sent it to Jolene last night, and she was over appreciative. I mean, like she left our live last night and went on to TikTok, and it was late, so I scrolled through. She posted like 3 videos of how appreciative she was for everybody and everybody that was in chat and is willing to help. And I actually emailed Mr. Steve, and he's on board for helping. So I've been doing a lot in the background. And if you would like to participate, as was mentioned in the live last night, he wanted to be a police officer. And I've reached out to some of my law enforcement friends and contacts that I have, and I've got badges and patches on their way to my house. And I'm going to get it all together and then either ship it to her or hand deliver it to her. I don't want to put her business out there, but here in the next few months, I'll be going to the location where she's moving to. So it's, it was an amazing live. And I haven't done an interview in a long time. I kind of got in a funk with everything going on, and I was
tempted to click the link and come on panel, but I didn't know if you'd want me up there or not. So I just stayed in chat.
You were welcome to come on panel, Arctic. I didn't think you felt good enough to be up. So you were welcome to come up, and she'll be back on. This is something that we're going to keep his case rolling. And, she'd never done a podcast before. She's never had anybody reach out to her and attempt to help. She's been doing it all on her own from TikTok. And, it just broke my heart. And like I said last night, I believe that the stars bring us together. And I mean this wholeheartedly. I believe that you're placed in a place that you're supposed to be at the time you're supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. And I ran across her, and then Arctic was amazing on putting out the premiere that he put out a video. We got his name on this side. She was, I freaked out when TikTok went down because that was the only way I had to contact her. So I hurried up and sent her a message. And then when I went back to check to see if she replied, I had the little TikTok's gone thing on my screen and I about had a panic attack. But she did
It's
make
back.
it in last night, and it was phenomenal. It was really, I mean, the community, everybody that was there, I appreciate everybody that came in. And like I said, Arctic, you know, he's our rock star. He was on top of getting the petition up and
Yeah,
running.
he did the I replayed his premiere from last week. I did that last week too, I think, didn't I?
Yeah, you played the
Yeah.
premiere on Jaden. Yeah.
I thought I did. Yeah. Okay. I was making sure I did. Guys, I'm losing my mind. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's a really sad situation, that whole case and everything. And I feel so bad for the mother.
Oh, I'm glad that Mr. Steve is getting to look at the case too, because I really want his input on this.
I
do
think I
too.
mentioned last week when I played it if he'd be interested in covering that. I didn't know, but he'd probably be amazing if he did. So that's good. Yes.
Yeah, God love him. I texted him at 10 o'clock last night and was like, I need your help.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Absolutely. I'm glad to hear that. I'll have to check it out. And next time, I didn't get a notification. Nothing went off on my phone or anything. So I don't know what's going on. But next time, like, call me or something. Let me know, Mom, because I would love to be there, please. Absolutely. Yeah,
Diego, did you see Jana's good news?
Jenna. No, I did not. Let me go back up through here real quick. Hold
Nancy Grace reached out to her.
Finally.
Her producer did.
Yep. Enough of us reached out to Nancy that she finally reached out.
I sent her 3 emails. They were a little bit different, each one of them. Thank God. Thank God. I don't know whose email it was. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just grateful somebody reached out to you. Good.
She told everybody this morning in the Discord.
That is awesome, Janet. God bless and congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that. What, did they set anything up yet, Janet, or is it she was in here a minute ago?
I think her team's just looking at the case right now, but I'm sure once they take a look at everything, they're going to want to they're definitely want to cover this.
Yeah.
Especially when they see
and Nancy's going to rip Tony a new asshole, and I can't wait to watch it.
Big time. That's what I was getting ready to say. As soon as they see the relationship between her husband and, I'm sorry, the person she was married to, because he wasn't a husband to her, the person she was married to and his cop friend that showed up and all those things, Nancy's going to go nuts. I can just see it now. So that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, you guys are really, maybe I need to stay away longer. You guys are doing some great things in here when I'm not here. That's awesome. Great job, Mom, for the live from last night. Again, I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I would have loved to have been there. So
you can always replay, crew. It was amazing. It was really,
I'm gonna watch
it was a really good live. Like, it was a really good live. I'm really proud of everybody and thankful to everybody that came in and is willing to help and share his story. And you know, she needs justice. Like, there's no way around it. There's no way around it. Like, she needs justice. And I literally, like, held in my normal personality out of respect for her because, you know, Arctic said it best in chat. I was ready to blow a fucking gasket, to put it nicely.
Hey, Stella. And there's been nothing since she put that out, or what Arctic premiered and you've talked about. Nothing's happened, and nobody's come to figure out how that child ended up the way he did.
No, they closed the case.
No. And we showed the pictures, or I had Mom show the pictures of his clothes during the live yesterday. Dude, there's no way you're going to tell me that he was up in that drivetrain of that snowmobile and his clothes didn't have more tears than what they did.
Well, and that's the one thing, because I know snowmobiles. I grew up riding them. I've seen many accidents with the fire service, so on and so forth. There was one video in there that showed I think it was his jacket or his pants or something that they were caught up in there, and it was just a little snag on the one corner. And I went, how did that happen? And that's all that came out of that. That makes no sense. And for him to end up, I hate saying this because it's so sad, for him to end up folded up the way he was in there, that I don't understand, other than the fact that the grandfather just kept right on going to get him wrapped all the way up in there the way he did. There was no stopping. There was no nothing. And Josie was in, thank God, and agreed with me that any little bump you hit on a snow machine or a snowmobile, whatever you want to call it, you're going to feel it. You're going to stop.
Oh, well, get this, because his mother was in there and said that, you know, the grandfather felt the snowmobile bogging down. So what did he do? He accelerated, gave it more gas. So, I mean, there's that. I mean, and the fact, you know, Jaden's sister sat there and said, "Hey, I don't feel Bubba hanging on to me anymore." And he didn't immediately stop. I mean, come on now.
Right.
That's what we talked about the other day. That's sickening to me. And the fact that they got off and looked all over the place for him, couldn't find him because he was up underneath. I've never seen or heard of anything being able to get stuck that far up inside the track on that. It was right up underneath the seat like that. That's
Now,
insane.
I mean, granted, it was an older snowmobile. She said it was a 1988 Ski-Doo.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I wondered, okay, but still, it doesn't matter.
And you also have to take into effect that they didn't look for Jaden. The 7-year-old.
That's what I meant.
him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Not
And the
grandpa.
Not Grandpa.
Grandma.
Grandpa didn't call 911 either. It was
Hey,
a vigilant neighbor that called 911.
Grandma was there too?
Yeah.
That's new because I didn't know that. I just
She
thought it was
She
him
wasn't
and the kid.
outside. She was in the house, but she was still there. And if you see your 7-year-old granddaughter running around the freaking yard screaming and hysterically crying,
You need to step out and
you
ask
should
why.
probably come outside and see what the hell's going on.
Then now, was there any talk about whether or not he was drinking or on any medications or anything?
He wasn't drinking. He was not drunk, but he was taking Xanax, according to the mother.
And they didn't do a toxicology on him. They pretty much did the equivalent of a breathalyzer.
None of that had to happen. Not as soon as you feel a nudge, a jerk, a bounce, a bang, you stop. If it bogs down, especially, you want to check out why. You don't keep going. Oh my God, that makes me even sicker to my stomach. That's disgusting. Yeah,
And
he
then
needs
she
to
let
be
us
held
know last
accountable
time
for it.
that he had fell off previously to getting wound up in it.
Well, he had fallen off once before he fell and got wrapped up in it. Yeah, absolutely. That day. And then he had previously fallen off a couple of times, she said. So,
Right.
So the idiot grandfather
was
didn't think it might be
Grandpa's
safer to keep the
secret.
kids in front of him. That's stupid to me. If it happens once or twice or one time's enough, then you put the kids that are smaller and younger and you know don't know what they're doing in front of you, where you can protect them. You don't leave them behind you dangling off the back like that.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking small town, good old boy law enforcement. Grandpa knew everybody in the town.
That's
She has
there
a
it is.
criminal justice degree, so she's not one to be messed with, and she just needs, you know, a community, people to stand behind her and push and get this rolling. She wants this case reopened. She's trying to
Absolutely.
get a private investigator, like, because they pretty much they slammed the door in her face and said, "This pisses me off so bad. Get over it."
We've heard somebody else that's been told that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's been said more than once to people. That's wrong.
And it's
And-
like I said in my video, I don't necessarily think that Grandpa intentionally did something to him, but at bare minimum, I think it is criminally negligent homicide.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or involuntary manslaughter. One of the two, in my opinion, because you could have prevented the whole thing. First off, from putting helmets on the kids, putting them where they should be, or not putting them on there together. First off, that's dangerous in itself. Snowmobile is not made for 4 people to be on or 3 people to be on. That's okay. Strap the kids down if you can. If you can't, then they don't get on there. Put them in front of you, whatever. He didn't take any precautions whatsoever, as far as I'm concerned. And this didn't have to happen, but it did. So that's not good. Were there previous incidents that concern? Well, besides him falling off more than once, guys, was there anything else that's ever happened in the past like this?
No, this was a normal event for them to go and hang out at Grandpa's and ride the snowmobile, and like this was something that they did.
It sounds to me like he was trying to show off to the kids, and it blew up.
Well, we know that he was going very fast, is the way that the sister, I don't want to use her name. I mean,
Well, here's the
Jolene
thing.
did last night, but said that Grandpa was going very fast.
So
And this
if
is an
you hit it,
8-year-old autistic boy who was very rambunctious and very
and he wasn't very
active.
big. He wasn't very
No, he
big
was
either.
tiny.
Okay.
He was tiny.
And on a snowmobile, even the older ones, newer, it doesn't matter. If you hit a little bump, it's gonna throw the machine in different
Well,
directions.
and here's what I'm still trying to wrap my brain around, because the sister said she didn't feel them hit any bumps or anything, and she's insisting on that. So, how is he going to get wrapped up in the drivetrain of the snowmobile and not
Here's
feel any type of bump?
what I'm gonna tell you. I think happened because but I don't understand it from that one video with the jacket. I think it was what could have happened, and I'm thinking what may have happened is if the child didn't have his jacket zipped up, which again is the grandfather's idiocracy for not making the kids be mudded up the right way, and it was dangling as he was leaning back because he was third one back. He was on the very end, and the jacket was hanging. It could have gotten the bottom of the corner of his jacket could have got grabbed by the track as it was rolling and pulled in, and it sucked him all the way up inside. That's what could have happened, but I don't understand how the clothing looked like it did going through all that, especially if the grandfather hurried up and hit and throttled it and it took off faster. That track starts moving faster, it'll pull him all the way up inside. And he was clear at the top.
And I get that, Lisa Joe, and that's all the more reason why you shouldn't have little kids on the back. You should put them in front of you and you should only have one at a time, not two of them.
Yeah, right. And if he'd already fallen off once or twice or just one time alone, that should have been the only warning you needed. That's a warning. You would have gotten off easy on that point. No, you had to take it to the extent that he did, and now here we are. Oh my God. The thing is, though, Lisa, is if he did bounce off the back of it, he'd have bounced off the back. He wouldn't have got anywhere near the tracks. Okay. And that's why I think something grabbed him and pulled him down or pulled him down into it. That's what I think happened truly, because the way they run, even the older ones, it's a tread. It's an ongoing track and a tread that spins like this. But the faster you throttle, the faster it goes. If he'd have bounced off the back of it, he would have cleared it. That's the thing that I don't understand. So either way, unless if he did bounce off, maybe off to the side, if he went off the side of it, again, jacket dangling open, that could have sucked in the jacket there too. But still, I hate talking about it because it's so horrifying to think about.
I mean, and I get people saying that they think it's an unfortunate accident, and it is. It is an unfortunate accident, but it's still criminally negligent homicide, in my opinion, because if I go out after I've had 3 of my gummies and decide to go driving and I kill someone, it's a very unfortunate accident, but I'm still going to be held accountable because it was my responsibility that caused that.
Amen to that one, bud. Yes, sir. And the grandfather he doesn't sound like he's taking any kind of accountability for this. If he is, I haven't heard it.
What I don't get is the restraining order that was put on her. What was it? Her husband.
Well, probably because he wanted to beat the hell out of that was his father, right?
Lisa, we forget the fact whether he took Xanax or not. Okay, I don't really give 2 fucks whether he took Xanax or not. The fact of the matter is, he put the kids on the back instead of on the front. He put both kids on there instead of just one kid at a time. He didn't put helmets on the kids. He didn't dial 911. He didn't try to resuscitate the child. It's the overall total and sum of everything that took place. Yes, accidents happen. But this man was completely irresponsible and should face charges.
He didn't take any accountability for anything. That's the whole problem. If he would have done something, if he would have picked up his phone and dialed 911, if he'd have tried, he put his hands on the child to try to help him, to get him out from underneath the sled, anything, that's taking some accountability. He did none of that. That's the sad part with this whole thing. Hey, Chris, good to see you, bud. Brandy, good to have you here, dear. Yeah, this one sucks. It really does. Wow. Well, like I said, I'm gonna go check it out, Mom. And
I mean, I guess a better example that I could use is if I had both of my nephews on my four-wheeler with me and I decided that I was going to go start doing donuts at full speed with them on the back, and one of them flew off and hit a tree and cracked their head and it ended up killing them, I would be held responsible for that.
And you would take accountability for it.
Yeah.
He's not. That's the thing right there. Instead, he puts a restraining order against his son because he knows that, he was wrong and he doesn't want to have to deal with it. So, and his son, I'm sure his son is probably pissed. So I'll have to say that. Yeah, I'll check that one out too. Maybe at the end, if we have, how long is it, Mom? Do you remember?
A little bit over an hour.
Okay, well, we'll see how long this goes. If not, everybody, put Mom's link in here, and if not, everybody that hasn't seen it, please go check it out over there. Hit the like button, share it out. If you have not subscribed to Mind of Monsters, please do, and make sure to hit the notification bell so that you guys don't miss anything Mom puts out. She doesn't get to do it too often, so when she does it right, does it real. So please do that, and I appreciate it very much. Okay. Wow. Well, I'm glad she got to come up and talk because that's what she sounds like she needs to do. What we watched when I played Arctic's premiere, she's really stressed out over this and really, really at her ends with. So she needs something. Definitely needs some help with it. I agree with that. Highly irresponsible, yet at the same time, look how many people put kids. Yes, I know. They do it behind tubes, four-wheelers. They do it behind snowmobiles too, SRB, around here. They do it behind cars around here. They'll put their kids behind their car and drive down the middle of the road. I've never agreed with that. I just don't. When we have enough snow, I just don't agree with that kind of shit. It's dangerous in every aspect. I've been to many scenes that are because of those things. So, not good. Not good at all. There's Mom's link. Thank you, Arctic. Guys, click this link, run over there, hit that like button on that video and everything else she's got over there, because anything she's got, if she put it out, it's great. If you have not subscribed, please do. And like I said, hit the notification bell so you don't miss nothing, and share it out, please, if you will, through all your social media platforms. It is very much appreciated, and it will make some noise and awareness for this situation as need be. Okay. Sorry to hear that, Walt. I hope you're doing okay, Walt, by the way. Thank you for joining us, bud. Let's see. Chris, Miss Sherry's here. Don't worry about that. I did the same thing, Miss Sherry. That's why I'm late today. I had a doctor's appointment too. Welcome, Peggy Bradenbach. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations again, Miss Jana. I'm super excited for you. I see you now. Holden Zappel is looking. Oh, okay. Awesome. That is awesome. It'll probably make it there then, especially once she sees the details. Maybe Nancy needs to get an email about
Jaden's case. He's already gotten one, at least one.
Good. I can guarantee she'd make noise about that one.
I reached out to her on Twitter too.
Good.
She's usually pretty good about answering me. So,
welcome, Miss Zelda, Rowena. Wonderful to see all you guys. 31 people, 34 likes. You guys rock and roll. And Miss Brady B, good to see you, dear.
And what pisses me off the most about Jaden's case is People magazine is literally the only mainstream that has touched his case. She has reached out to Dateline. She has reached out to local news. She's reached out to everybody you could imagine, and nobody will respond to her. Like, she actually said that today she was going to start making phone calls again.
Yeah, and quite honestly, People's Magazine, I mean, credit where it's due, they covered the case, but they didn't really cover all the details. They didn't cover it in full like it should have been covered.
Yeah, they
2 paragraphs and 2 pictures is not covering a case. I mean, like, I'm with Arctic. Bless them for doing it. Thank you. All props and credit for doing it. But come on. This is where we come out and say we can do better.
Right.
If it doesn't have hashtag high profile on it, it's like pulling teeth to get mainstream to do a damn thing.
Well, and of course, it's not if it's not something that they're allowed to talk about or they have a specific script on. There's another thing they don't, they won't go with it.
It's a
So
Well,
closed
and
case.
mainstream media are going to be very, very careful what they put out because they got to cover their ass. They don't want to get sued. So I get them trying to be kind of cautious with what they put in the article, but it
but
they
to
could
do
have
it,
said they could have told the story without making any real accusations. Like, I mean, I said in my video, I don't think Grandpa and did this intentionally, but I do think he needs to hold accountability for being negligent in his actions.
absolutely. That's it right there. That's it.
Even the way I worded my title on the video last night, it's not what I wanted to say, not what I wanted to put in the description, but since we already know that Grandpa likes to run to the law and put out restraining orders and stuff, I was very careful about what I put in my title.
To me, that tells me that there's guilt there. Somebody that does that obviously is feeling that guilt pretty hardcore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, anybody that does stuff like that, there's guilt just brewing because he knows he was wrong. If he didn't know he was wrong, he wouldn't be worried about any of that stuff, in my opinion. So there's that. Thank you, SRB. Okay, guys. Again, like I said today, guys, I appreciate you guys all joining me today. We're looking into a case that's kind of local to me, and Miss Kells and anybody else that's here in Ohio, Northeast Ohio. It's a 60-year-old murder case, folks. Nothing's been solved. Miss Beverly Jarosz was murdered 60 years ago, you guys, with nothing. There's been nothing. And it hasn't gotten the coverage. It was in the news. A lot of different things have gone on with this, and there's no answers. And it just makes me wonder. That's all I'm saying. Miss Sherry says Grandpa has a connection in the DA office, but you didn't hear that from me, allegedly. That, honest to God, Sherry, that don't surprise me. If he does know law enforcement, odds are that he does know somebody there. It's a small town. Am I wrong, Mom?
No, and I actually briefly touched on that again, being very careful about what was said.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he has connections all the way
Right.
across the board. It is a small town, and
There's your problem. Every time we touch something like this, it always ends up being something like that. And that is just a shame. That's abuse.
I mean, when your dead grandchild's laying in your yard, who in their right mind's first thought says, "Oh, let me get a restraining order"?
No, most grandparents would say, I would love to give my life for his right now. Instead, you're putting restraining orders against his parents. No. Don't work that way. There's something not right with this person. That's enough for me to know right there. Welcome, Mind Boggles. Madahari, great to see you, dear. Thank you for joining us. Just a mess. Just a mess. God. Absolutely. For those of you that didn't see it, I will play something on Jaden's case before we leave today, just to re-up the people that don't know anything about it. Maybe I can put Mom's on. Either way, and we can skip through it to certain parts. It's definitely something that needs the attention that it deserves, folks, period. That's all I can say. So, and I'm grateful that you were able to have her join you, Mom. That's awesome. And I'm sure it was amazing, as it always is. All right. I think I got everybody in here. Does anybody else want to put anything out before we get started on this one?
I'm good. I'm actually anxious to hear about this one because it's a new one to me.
It is, and it's another strange one. You good, Mama Bear?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mom, you got anything else to add to anything?
Not anything other than today's Monday, y'all. Today is Missing Poster Monday. Use that hashtag and share missing flyers.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
No,
right.
I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. If there's any audio issues or anything, like I said, there's not a whole ton of organized data on this stuff, so I had to put something together, different things. So bear with it, please. And again, 60 years old. It's hard to find anything good on this that has any, anything real good on it. So
And that's typically the issue that you run into when you're trying to cover these cult cases and stuff. Unless it was a high profile case that got coverage, you run into a lot of issues trying to find a lot of information. So.
Right. I mean, this goes all the way back to 1964, folks. 1964. And there's nothing. There's no arrest. There's no nothing. I don't understand it, but okay. I don't see her in here. Who are you talking about, Dreamer? Oh, Tomboy. Okay. Gotcha. All right, here we go. Let me know how the audio is.
From out of the depths of my soul, there arises a certain fear. What if I should die within the next year?
These are the lasting words of a dead girl. A girl brutally, violently killed at 16 years old.
And he came down and he just was screaming, murder, murder. That was the beginning of our nightmare.
It was the kind of crime that sends shockwaves of fear over a neighborhood.
Beverly Jaroz's murder has gone unsolved for 53 years.
The kind of murder that brought comments from
Some of these are dated too, you guys. This goes back to 2018. So, like I said, 60 years at this point, roughly. Just so everybody doesn't think I'm crazy.
officials normally hardened by violent death.
It took the innocence out of the city.
And it was brutal.
53 years since someone strangled and stabbed the girl 40 times in her Garfield Heights bedroom.
Well, it just defined my whole life and my parents' lives.
A bedroom shared with her sister Carol, just 12 years old at the time.
It's the first thing I ever think of, even now, when I wake up, and it's the last thing I think of before I go to bed.
Their mother died.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to stop repeatedly throughout this so you guys can get certain little details, but this is a good one. She said, just in Garfield Heights was an older community and hardworking families. Yeah, there was no, then it definitely, it wasn't something you would expect to happen in this community is all I'm saying. Great point, Kelly. Thank you.
On Valentine's Day this year, never having the answers she so desperately wanted. Who killed Beverly Jarosz?
Well, I just think that she met the wrong person at the wrong time, and this person was obsessed with her.
For him, I shall never cease to pray. The days creep by with their stealth, and I'll patiently await his return until sunset and death.
Police believe Beverly knew her killer. The murder weapon, a knife, never found. The rope used to strangle her, bound so tightly that it snapped.
The radio was blasting real loud. I believe that was used just to muffle her screaming.
For the last 16 years,
And that's something I want to add to this from what I learned. If you heard what she said about the rope that was used to strangle her was pulled so tight that it broke. To me, that's rage. Okay. It sounds like this person definitely was somebody she knew that was so angry at her to do something that, with that much strength that it was rage to me. That's just an opinion I have. I'm just saying. It's outside of Cleveland, Rowena. Yes, dear. So there's that too, guys. Sorry.
Detective Carl Begacki has worked the case.
There's over 900 files on this case, statements that have been taken through the years.
They've eliminated people of interest. They've gained people of interest. And yet,
this is like putting one of those 1,000-piece puzzles together, and then you find out the last piece is missing out of the box.
Begacki believes new DNA technology can help them find that missing piece, narrowing their search down to two main suspects. Men, he says, who still live in the area.
They should be looking over their shoulder, put it that way. They should be careful what they're doing because sooner or later it's going to happen.
Did they have daughters of their own? And how do they look at their daughters and think about what they did to Beverly? I don't understand it.
And somebody's out there living their life when they should be locked up answering for Beverly. So that bothers me a lot. And, you know, it does get personal, I guess. I mean, it does. And, you know, you would just like to see an end of it. You know, nobody deserves this.
My sorrows I shall never tell. Sweet sleep, come gently with stealth. To all I have known farewell. I have a rendezvous with death.
No, stop here. No.
Even at age 16, Beverly was a literary soul, constantly quoting Shakespeare, writing poetry in her diary. Her beautifully handwritten words published into a book of poems by her sister Carol. 5 decades after Beverly's murder, nearly every page and every poem mentions death and dying.
It seems like it could be a premonition.
What if I should die within the next year? Life, for me, has just begun. All my dreams would be unfulfilled, all my work left undone, all my goals unreached. My life would have been in vain.
Beverly's father stayed alone in the family home for nearly 30 years after he and his wife divorced. He left every single thing just like it was in 1964, hoping that a jury might someday need to visit. This is a case that will never be closed until the killer is found, a case that will likely take a confession to solve. But if you do know anything, call Garfield Heights Police. They are waiting for that break to solve Beverly's case. Homa Bash, News 5.
All right. One moment, guys.
Sister of Beverly, Jarosz, has been looking for her killer. For 57 years, the sister of Beverly, Jarosz, has been looking for her killer. Was it a stranger or somebody much closer? There's some really interesting suspects in this cold case, and police haven't stopped investigating. Join me with Vinnie Politan on Court TV for this perplexing whodunit. Nearly 57 years ago, just days after Christmas, 16-year-old Beverly Jarosz was strangled and stabbed to death in her bedroom. Beverly was a gifted and well-liked student at her Marymount High School. Her autopsy would later reveal that Beverly died from asphyxiation, strangulation, and 42 stab wounds in her neck and chest. Let's watch this segment on Court TV with Vinnie Politan.
It is time to open up tonight's unsolved case file. We go back to 1964, a horrific murder of a 16-year-old girl in Cleveland, Ohio. Homa Bash from WEWS has the story.
A small bungalow on Thornton Avenue in Garfield Heights was where Beverly Jarosz was killed, brutally stabbed to death. Jarosz, 16 years old, a student at Marymount High School, was to go shopping with friends. A Christmas break shopping trip she never made.
Somebody got a hold of Dad at work, and Dad came home and discovered the pretty bad crime scene.
There were no signs of forced entry. In this film from 1964, investigators invite our news cameras into the scene. Her upstairs bedroom, where Beverly was murdered, stabbed repeatedly. No weapon found, but on the scene, a rope used to tie her up. County Coroner Sam Gerber made a rare public call for help.
And the clouds of fear and anxiety hovering over this community bring me to you.
Probably literally thousands of tips came in.
Among the tips, people, for whatever reason, falsely confessing to the crime. Investigated and dismissed. The trail grew cold.
Through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they essentially followed up on what they could. And, unfortunately didn't come up with the right answer.
Chief Sackett grew up in this town, joined its police force in 1983. In the early 2000s, as a detective, he and a colleague used DNA testing to try to find Beverly's killer.
The coroner's office still had all the evidence. There was some preliminary DNA testing done, and that didn't help us out.
The lead investigator, long since retired, met with Sackett and his partner.
He had his opinion of who he thought the suspect was, and through the years just didn't have the evidence to prove or disprove it.
Suspects, some of whom are still alive today. Garfield Heights residents, they have their theories of what happened in this house. Beverly's father lived in this house until his death in 2012. Her sister and mother moved away long ago. Still in Ohio, waiting for that call from Chief Sackett.
Mom and the sister deserve an answer. That kind of keeps us going.
50 years later, a young girl, her life unlived. The question today, as it was in 1964, who killed Beverly Jarosz?
We don't have an answer yet, and we're not giving up.
Not giving up. Maybe someone said something. Maybe you heard something. Here's the phone number, 216-475-5686. That is the Garfield Heights Police Detective Bureau, 216-475-5686. Incredibly tragic for that dad. I mean, he stayed in that house for all those years, never got the answer. Still with me, retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King, and retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. And joining us now are two special guests in Cleveland, Ohio. Author who is currently working on a book about the Beverly Jarosz case, Dr. James Badal, and in Cape Coral, Florida, crime scene investigator for the Cape Coral Police Department and author of Evidence of Murder, Lisa Black, who also spent some time working in Cleveland, of course. Great to have everyone with us. James, let me begin with you. Are there clues? Are there leads in this case? James, do you hear me?
Apparently not.
James is not hearing, but Lisa Black is. Lisa, what can you tell us about this case? What do we know about leads or any potential people who were looked at here? Neighbors, friends, boyfriends?
Well, there were thousands of tips, and apparently the case was exhaustively investigated. They had many suspects, vague suspects, checked them all out, went the extra mile, and did everything they could. But apparently there was never enough evidence against any one person that they could get a conviction or even an arrest.
I'm going to try one more time. Dr. James Badal, can you hear us? No, definitely can't hear. I thought I heard him in the background there. Bobby Chacon, let me ask you, 1964. This case is old. It's older than I am. Is this one that can still be solved?
I think so, and I think because of what was just said, I think that there was good crime scene work done for the time. There was good exhaustive investigative work done. You heard in the piece that the lead investigator has an idea of who he thinks did it. So there are clues, there are hints, there is some at least evidence that points to certain people. Now it's obviously hasn't reached the threshold needed to get an arrest warrant and the prosecutor to take the case to trial. But there is certain evidence that leads the police to certain suspects in this case. So this is not one of those typical ones where you and I deal with, Vinny, where there's absolutely no clue. It's a complete mystery. Here, there was evidence that this young girl was being stalked. There was a jewelry left. She had some kind of weird secret admirer. She was nervous about that. People knew about it. So, I mean, there is certain leads in this case. So I think that, they just need maybe one missing piece or two missing pieces that puts them over the top to get that threshold that they need for the probable cause warrant and then for the arrest and hopefully conviction at this point. Now, we realize that the perpetrator, if still alive, would be, close to 80 or maybe in his 80s. So, you're working with that kind of situation. But I think that there seems to be enough to know, or maybe know who did it, and hopefully make an arrest.
Lisa, let me ask you, because the old time footage fascinates me. The one part that I'm most fascinated with are the crime scene investigators with the trench coats, kind of like walking around the scene of the crime with the camera crew from the local news who was there. As a crime scene investigator, are you surprised that they were still able to test some DNA that was kept from back in 1964, way before we even conceived of DNA as evidence?
No, and I think DNA would be the best route to go in this day and age. Of course, no one knew anything about DNA back in that time, but now we can do so much with just what we call touch DNA if someone simply touched an object. Of course, the other part of the equation with DNA is you need a person's standard to compare it to. Simply getting a DNA profile won't help unless you can also somehow legally get DNA profiles from any suspects you have in order to compare the two.
Yeah, and Bobby Chacon, there's all these ancestry.com and these other websites. Plus, there's a lot of criminals have to submit to DNA. So I guess one way maybe you may not get the suspect himself, or someone might be related to him, and then you got to do some more digging to figure out who the connection may be to.
Yeah, and you can build a familiar DNA chart if you have enough material. You've got to remember they tested some of this stuff a couple of years ago, and DNA is a finite material, so it's used up normally in the testing process. So if you only have a certain amount and you use it up, then you don't have anything left to test. So hopefully, off of that rope that she was tied with, there might be samples that they could get, and every couple of years we come up with a new way. That the MVAC system was one of the most recent ones, that now we have ways to get things now DNA from objects that we previously couldn't. So even in the age of DNA, it's not like we learned about DNA and then we learned all we had to learn, but now we're learning more and more all the time, and we're improving our methods to obtain DNA off of items that are old or different materials that we previously thought we couldn't get DNA off of. So the technology is ever increasing. And so as long as you still have, usable samples, enough material to still examine, there's always that possibility existing.
All right. Big thanks, Bobby Chacon. Lisa Black, always great to see you as well. Mike King, I think we lost his connection. And Dr. James Badal, always love speaking with him, but we had a little technical glitch tonight. But thank you all so much.
The murder weapon used on Beverly was never located. I think back on my own investigation into all the public records on this case, and I'm troubled by a couple of things. The more than a dozen disturbing phone calls that Beverly received before the murder. Then there was the mysterious gift box found on the back porch containing a bracelet and a ring. But most importantly, I'm disturbed by one suspect in particular who had a prior criminal history of assault on women. He used a knife in those assaults and was quoted by police as telling police, quote, "Whenever I get disturbed, I find a knife in my hand," close quote. That's chilling. Well, what are your thoughts on Beverly Jaros's murder? Was this a stranger encounter where Beverly happened to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time, which incidentally was her home? Or is this killer much more personal? I'm going to be watching for your comments down below, and I want to thank you for weighing in on these cases. I really appreciate the conversations that you have with each other, and I want to express my thanks to the Court TV team and my colleague, Bobby Chacon. I'm honored to be able to associate with these folks and explore these fascinating criminal cases. Now remember, you can find Profiling Evil on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you like podcasts, you can find us on your favorite podcast platform. And you can always get more information by visiting our website at profilingevil.com. Hey, thanks again, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.
Okay, so it's obvious that they have somebody that they've been looking at this point in time, and this was December 21st of 2021. Okay, so it's been a few years since this came out. Now, thank you, SRB. There's a link there for profiling evil. We all know who Mike King is, and of course Vinny. I like Mike King. I think he's pretty thorough, and he definitely knows how to investigate something, in my opinion. So, what I worry about with this is if the person that did this is still alive, that there will be no justice before that person passes. Okay. And another thing that bothers me about this is this happened in this girl's own sanctuary, her own bedroom. The only place you typically would feel absolutely the safest, in my opinion, your own bedroom in your own home, surrounded by your family. That's scary to me. Okay. It really is. So, moving on. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find, like I said, it's hard to find a bunch of stuff on this because it's so old. So just bear with how I put this
So
together.
I missed. Did they say whether there was an essay involved or not?
It didn't come up yet. And I wondered that too. I haven't heard it. That's the thing. And I looked for it, can't find that. So hopefully there's not. At the very, she suffered enough, but
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's almost as if she knew something was going to happen by how she was doing those writings and everything.
I believe she did. I think that's why she was writing those, because I think there was a stalker. I think somebody was stalking her. There was somebody that showed an interest in her that was a little too interested, and that's why I think she started writing those things. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Hold on a minute here. Let me try this one. Going through the whole link thing, not working again. 1 sec. Hold on, you guys. It's doing its thing again. And like I said, you may hear some of the same things you've heard already, just in different form. So bear with me. Thank you, Paula.
And welcome to another episode of Pastime Mysteries. Today's episode takes place during the cold Cleveland winter of 1964 in December. Beverly Jarosz was brutally killed in her bedroom, and the case went unsolved. It's truly haunting, and my condolences go out to her family. It was tough researching this case, but I'm glad I can bring this to light for you guys. Also, a side note, thank you guys for the recent support on the videos. Let me know what case I should cover.
Sorry for this guy's voice, you guys. It creeps me out. So just the story is what it's about. Try to ignore the voice.
Cover next in the comments. With that being said, let's get into it. Beverly Ann Jarosz was born on October 1st, 1948, in Cleveland, Ohio, to parents Ted and Eleanor Jarosz. She had a younger sister named Carol. Beverly went to an all-girls private high school, and she dated an older college student named Roger. She also had a, quote, greaser bad boy ex-boyfriend named Daniel. It is reported that she had once received a mysterious jewelry gift that prompted Beverly to carry a sharp letter opener as a weapon. It seems like the boys were really into her, which creeped her out. Anyways, She also liked writing, and more specifically, writing poetry. She enjoyed reflecting on nature, music, time, and love in her writings. It was now winter break, a 2-week break from school that the girls get during the holidays. Beverly and her sister must have been super excited to spend it with their friends and family. On the Monday morning of December 28th, 1964, Beverly and her sister kissed their parents goodbye as they went to work. After their parents left, they got ready and walked a mile to their grandmother's house for lunch. At around 1 p.m., Beverly wanted to return home because she had plans to go shopping with her friends, Barbara and Margie. On the way back, Beverly...
I'm not 100% sure, SRB, and I've wondered that myself. Did she tell somebody about this specific person, or was there more than one person? That she was very pretty, and it was stated that she was very well liked by the boys, you know? Was there more than one person that came at her that way? You know, I don't know, but was there just one specific person that did this, and the rest of them were just admirers? Who knows, you know? And that's what makes this kind of difficult, probably, per se. But I believe that the investigator actually has ideals as to who. And so I don't know if Beverly actually opened up and said, hey, this person is harassing me or stalking me or whatever. And they got that information from her. So I don't know. Maybe to her family or something. Obviously not police, but just wondering. Exactly, SRB. Exactly.
Beverly caught a ride with an 18-year-old man who lived next to her grandmother. When she got home, she called her mother while she was at work to check in. She then was told about someone who called for her father, but since he didn't answer, the person left their name, which was later uncovered to be fake. Her grandmother also had called to make sure the girls got back home safely, but Beverly couldn't stay on the phone too long because her friend was arriving any minute and she still needed to change. At that point, it was reported that nothing seemed wrong. At around 1:25 p.m., Barbara arrived and noticed that the sliding door was open and there was loud music playing from the back, which she thought was weird. As she went to knock on the door, she heard a loud thump from upstairs, sounding like someone was moving furniture. She then knocked, rang the doorbell, and waited. After waiting for a while, she left and figured she had been stood up. Margie, who was waiting for Barbara and Beverly, then called Barbara, wondering what was taking them so long. Barbara told Margie that Beverly didn't answer the door, and it was then when the two became very concerned. After, Margie called Beverly's grandmother, who then called her father, who was at work. Ted rushed home and pulled into the driveway at around 4 p.m. He then rushed inside and straight to Beverly's room, where he found her dead, lying face down next to her bed with a rope tied around her neck and ankles. Beverly was only 16 years old. An autopsy determined her death as strangulation, and it was subsequently revealed that she was stabbed 42 times in the neck and chest.
That, I'm telling you, between the strangulation being the way it was and how many times the stabbings were, this was rage to me.
Exactly. This wasn't some random person that crawled through her bedroom window. This is someone that knew her, that was mad at her for that type of rage.
Yep.
It had to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody that maybe she said, no, I'm not interested in you. Please leave me alone. You know, I have a boyfriend, or I'm interested in somebody else. This person wasn't taking no for an answer. This is a, if I can't have you, no one will situation, in my opinion. That's a lot of times to stab somebody after strangulation, guys. And the strangulation was so severe that they said that they did it so intensely that the rope broke. That's a lot, folks. And I'm just saying, this person was pissed, very angry. This is sad to me. And I hope that they have somebody to give this family some form of closure at some point after 60 years? Nobody? I just can't get it. Yeah, very, very personal. That's what I was looking for, Kelly. Thank you. Very personal. Well, they said that there was strangulation and then said that she was stabbed. Who said critical? They just said strangled and then stabbed 40 some times. So definitely a crime of passion, Paul. I agree.
Cuyahoga County Coroner Samuel Gerber, who had worked on Cleveland.
I hate when they do that. It's Cuyahoga County Coroner, not Cuyahoga, whatever the hell he said. Anyway, just so you guys know.
In fairness, not all of us know how to pronounce every city in America.
I know, but living here, it's because I hear it all the time. I know it. People always say that when wrong, though. It's hilarious. Cuyahoga. It's Cuyahoga. They're all native names. Yeah, the one I wondered that too. But I think they referred to him as an ex-greaser boyfriend, which, burnout, whatever you want to call it. Alfalfa. Is that okay? Alfalfa? That's how I say it. But yeah, I've been thinking about him too.
Well, and it would have to be someone pretty much familiar with the house to know what room was hers, I would think. So the ex is definitely looking like the number one suspect, in my opinion.
That was my thought too. Knowing when people are home or not home, knowing how to get where her bedroom is, how to get into the house, whatever. Back then, though, people didn't lock their doors, especially in Garfield Heights. Okay. Alafaya.
Yes, you did it. I was fixing to correct you. It's Alafaya. Alafaya.
What is that? What I was supposed to say? Alafaya?
You said alfalfa.
I thought she spelled alfalfa.
Alafaya.
What is Alafaya?
Alafaya is where the Goodwood is. It's a street.
Oh, where the Goodwood. Got you. Okay.
It's a road here in Orlando. It's Alafaya.
See, that's what I thought she wrote was alfalfa. My apologies.
Thank you,
Alafaya.
Dreamer.
We aren't talking about the little rascals.
Nope.
Killing me, Smalls.
She spelled it right. I read it wrong. Alafaya. I got it. It's a tricky word. It's actually doesn't seem to be. Cuyahoga is, but that was just my stupidity when I read it wrong. So my apologies, folks. Matahari says absolutely they knew her. There's no way it was a stranger. That stalker was doing the most as it was, and who was calling asking for her dad, leaving fake names. Maybe the stalker. Yeah, see? And was that a phone call asking for the father to see if he was home? So that they could move on in, do what they do. I think this was maybe the ex trying to get back with her, and she wouldn't take him back. There was gifts left there for her. All of those things makes me believe everything so far that I feel like makes me believe it was the ex or the other one that Sherry just said, the 18-year-old that gave her a ride home, possibly.
Or it could be someone that she had been friends with, but she rebuffed because she said all the guys were after her. So she could have told some poor nerd to go home and play with his pocket protector, and he got pissed off about it.
It's very possible. I like the way you said it, but yes, it's very possible. There's a couple of people. Like I said, she was a very pretty girl. She was very popular. The boys all were interested in her, and it gives a lot of options. I'm kind of stuck on this ex and the 18-year-old. Those are my two suspects so far. You're good, Dreamer. Don't worry about that, dear. I appreciate you. All right, here we go.
It's a crime, as I have.
Not necessarily. Because they gave a fake name, Adahari. Sometimes people don't know the voices over the phone back then. They weren't so clear. You know what I mean? So maybe definitely not possibly. In my opinion, at least.
I've seen in my 29 years as coroner. Now, let's get into the main theory of the case. Beverly's mother, Eleanor, and her sister, Carol, believe Beverly was being stalked. Before the murder, both of them recalled people making random calls just to hang up all day, upwards of 10 to 12 times a day. The last call was made at the beginning of December 1964. She then received a mysterious sterling bracelet through the mail in July 1964. It was marked, quote, to Bev. It appeared to be from a big-name department store. This alarmed Beverly, so she
Welcome, Captain Jenks. Thanks for joining us, brother. Hope you're having a good day.
chose not to wear it. The following month, another bracelet was found. This time it was gold and on her back porch. There's even more to this theory. Listen to this. One evening, Carol said her father came home to find someone staring up at the girl's bedroom from the lawn. He chased the man down the block, but was unable to catch him. Beverly started to get jittery after this, making sure to always close the blinds and lock the doors. She once locked her parents out because she was so scared. She purchased a brass letter opener, which she stored for safety in the bedroom. What do you guys think? Was it her secret admirer who killed her? There are so many questions that are still unanswered today that even I am still confused. How did the intruder enter? Some reports are saying that maybe she accidentally left the door unlocked, which seems unlikely because of all the weird shit that was happening to her up until her murder.
Okay, did that just make anybody else uncomfortable? Like, this guy's got this super soft-spoken voice all of a sudden out of nowhere. He says the word shit. It just doesn't sound right to me. I'm sorry. Sorry, I had to make notice of that. Good to see you, Captain Jenks and Virginia Wolf. Thank you for being here. Pink Beanie's in the house. Good to see you as well.
Although it's been more than 5 decades since Beverly was found dead, investigators still believe that her case can be solved. Rest in peace, Beverly Jarosz. I want to thank you.
I definitely don't believe she left the door unlocked either. If there was all that going on and she locked her parents out of the house at some point, there's no way she left the door open. Pink Peony, however I said it, I don't know. Sorry, Tomboy. I always mess that name up. Okay, Mama Bear. So yeah, I don't believe she left the door unlocked, which tells me that he had to find another way to get in, or maybe knew the house. Again, that's what takes me back to the ex, possibly, of being there before in the past and possibly knowing how to get in. Maybe there would, there was a key that was left outside, an extra key or something that he saw her use one time or something like that. I'm just saying. I don't know, but let me see the next. Oh, hold on a minute. Okay, here's another news report. There weren't many of these, obviously. This one was from 2019, and then we have a couple other things on it too. I don't think there was, Kelly. I don't think there was any forced entry that they had talked about, which is why I think they thought that the person was known to her. And that takes me back to, or yeah, that's another point too, Sherry. Went in with her to check the house because she said, that's a good point right there, Sherry. I never thought of that. Somebody that went in to check the house because she was worried about that kind of stuff from the things going on. And that's a huge, I never thought of that at all. That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, very good point. Good thinking, Sherry. See? Welcome, Pink. It's okay. You're fine, dear. You're not a broken record. Those are the things that we need to hear. That's a good point. I'd have never thought of that. Critical says that at 1:10, Beverly lied to her grandmother to get off a call with her, saying her friend had arrived, and the friends didn't arrive till 1:25. That could be either she was forced to, or she just didn't want to talk to her grandmother anymore. It could be one of the two things. I don't think it's the latter because she doesn't seem like that type of a person, but we don't know. Good point, though. Thank you, Critical. And Monhari says it would be someone really, really close if they knew she was uncomfortable, or she got the ride home from somebody that she told the whole story to because she was uncomfortable. And some people are comfortable telling other people if they feel safe around them at that point. A story like that, maybe, you know. All right, here we go.
Or the fact that she was SA'd but found nude from the waist down and that much overkill kind of makes you wonder, is it someone who was unable to SA her?
Oh, that's interesting too. That's see, love the think tank stuff, you guys. Good point. Very good point. That would bring the rage. That would definitely bring the rage, Arctic. You know, the embarrassment, the things like that, and the anger from having that issue would definitely cause somebody to flip out and do that. Just saying. That makes some sense.
Is ever to be reported in Cleveland. A 63-year-old mystery with still no clues as to what happened to a girl who disappeared from the city's west side.
Here is Leon Bibb with the story of a child who simply vanished almost within sight of her own home.
Her mother called her a miracle child. She nicknamed daughter Beverly Rosebud. 10 years later, the daughter vanished. The story of the disappearance of Beverly Potts at
Oops. Sorry, guys. I clicked the wrong one. I have two Beverlys in here. My apologies. We'll get on that one soon. And they both happen in the same area. How about that? My apologies, guys. I just saw the first name and went into that. Wow. Here we go. Sorry. One. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I actually wanted to play this one before that one, so bear with me. My apologies. Here we go. From what I found, Critical, no. That was the only place they found anything.
The year is 1964, one of the most interesting periods of time in the 20th century.
Although the country was recovering from the death of its beloved President John Kennedy the previous year, life was easy living in the Cleveland suburb of Garfield Heights, Ohio. Top movies of the year were My Fair Lady, Mary Poppins, and Goldfinger. Music was exciting and new, from the British invasion to the sounds of Motown. Horn-rimmed glasses and pixie haircuts for the younger girls were common. Couples married and bought bungalow-style homes in Garfield Heights. Many had working-class jobs. It was affordable. The economy was booming. Christmas came in 1964, and the Cleveland Browns won the NFL championship. Ooh, I forgot about that. Anyway, nobody cares. I do. But there's proof that it happened, just for all you people that say that. But on Monday, December 28th, life came to a standstill for most of the Garfield Heights area residents, and for many would never be the same. Sweet, innocent 16-year-old Beverly Jarosz, a Catholic high school student from nearby Marymount High School, was stabbed 42 times and strangled in her bedroom at approximately 1:30 in the afternoon. Her killer has never been found. My name is John Ferrato. My childhood home was at 13801 Royal Boulevard, Garfield Heights, Ohio. I was born in 1959 at Marymount Hospital, and when I was 10 years old, we moved to Thomas Street in Maple Heights. In order to fully understand how I arrived at this suspect, we'll have to go back to 1969. This is where the wheels were set in motion for me personally. I was 10 years old, and my mother was driving down Garfield Park Road while talking about Beverly Jarosz. I was staring at these homes, and from that day and until 52 years later, I thought this is where Beverly was murdered. I always associated these homes with Beverly. When I was married 8 years ago, I showed my wife this area, and I pointed to these homes, telling her about the 16-year-old girl who was murdered here in 1964. In 2020, when I discovered where the murder actually took place, I was extremely confused. I was certain that it happened here. I had an overwhelming feeling that something was wrong. It's very spiritual and personal to me. I mean, it's changed my life. I'm not sure of what it's going to result in, but it's a story that I'm being asked to tell. Before I tell you this experience, let's go over the timeline of that Monday in December of 1964. At approximately, I'm showing different versions of this because I want to see if these timelines match up, by the way. And if anybody, including myself, were to catch anything in between these different timelines, things like that. That's all. Just so you guys know. Approximately 10 a.m. after Beverly and Carol have breakfast with their parents, they leave their home on Thornton Avenue and head to Turneytown, a nearby shopping center, to buy a hairnet at Woolworth's and a loaf of bread at Huff Bakery. They then walk to their grandmother's home on Dorothy Avenue. Yeah, to respond to that comment back there a few minutes ago and what Arctic said, a lot of, including my mother, teenagers didn't look like teenagers back then, guys. They just didn't. My mother, when she was 16, she looked like she was 30. That's truth. They all looked older than what they were. I don't know if it was the way they dressed, their hairstyles, or what it was. They just, the glass styles, they looked older. They really did, in my opinion. So, and that's based on pictures. Of course, I wasn't there to see people in person, but on pictures we saw, they definitely looked older than their ages. I'll tell you that much for sure. So that may not have helped, you know, in the fact that she was only a 16-year-old with the person that did this, unless it was, like I said, the ex-boyfriend per se. And, you know, he, I believe, was older than her as well. So there's that too. Avenue, which is about a half a mile away.
They arrive at approximately 11 a.m. The timeline up until this point is clear. After Beverly and Carol arrive at their grandmother's, it then becomes questionable. Beverly makes phone calls at her grandmother's to make plans to have an afternoon with her two girlfriends, Barbara Klanowski and Margaret Gorney. They are going to Margaret's house first, then going shopping and hanging out. While talking to Barb says that she is uncomfortable going to Margie's alone because she doesn't know her well. So Beverly agrees to meet her at Beverly's house on Thornton Avenue. Now, this is kind of confusing to me because this photo shows that they were not strangers. The girls finalize their plans. Beverly has lunch and mentions while she's home, she can change into her new sweater. It's a short distance between Margie's home and Beverly's home, and cutting through backyards was common. It's 12 noon on December 28, 1964, and the timeline remains consistently hazy. Beverly is leaving to go home and meet Barbara. They are to arrive at Margie's house between 1 and 2 p.m. Now, these two articles dated January 1st, 1965, claim that Beverly is going to or at the bus stop when Beverly's grandmother's next-door neighbor, Mrs. Monzalewski, sees her and stops her son James in the street or driveway and tells him to give Beverly a ride home. Now, this is a timeline that was published by the Cleveland Plain Dealer back January 1st in 1965, so just 3 days later. I'm going to read it as is, and then we'll talk about it later. Beverly, her sister Carol, 12, leave their home at 10921 Thornton Avenue, Garfield Heights, to visit their grandmother, Mrs. Maria Vanek, of 9535 Dorothy Avenue, for lunch. A neighbor sees the girls waiting for a bus on Turney Road and asks her 18-year-old son to take the family car and drive the girls to the grandmother's home. Beverly bundles up and leaves for home with an 18-year-old boy, a neighbor of her grandmother, who drives her there. The boy returns to his home immediately after dropping the girl at her home, where he sees nothing unusual. Now, the reason I bring this...
Okay, so the 18-year-old's probably going to be... I mean, unless he was able to do it really quick, not get anything on him, go in and out, that's hard to believe that he could have done that if he came directly back, they're saying. Then again, I don't know. Now I'm starting to wonder. Yeah, he went home immediately afterwards, didn't come in the door with any blood on him or anything like that. That's going to make it hard for me to think that he was the one that could have been, you know, the one to do it. That's another question I was wondering too, Kathy. Was there somebody in the house waiting for her when she got home? That's another big one that I never thought of at the beginning of this. So that's very possible in my opinion as well. If they broke into the home without forced entry, because she'd have noticed the forced entry, I think, and not went in. That's my opinion, of course. So that's, again, tells me somebody that knew the home, that had been there more than once, obviously, and it was close to her, in my opinion, if there was somebody there waiting for her when she got home. That's another good point.
This up is because up until this point, no one knows that Beverly is going home by herself. The only people that know are Beverly's grandmother, Mrs. Monzalewski, her son James, Carol, Margie Gorney, and Barbara Klanowski. And if they didn't tell anyone, then the person who did this would have had to either seen Beverly leave her grandmother's house alone or arrive at her home on Thornton alone. There's really no other way. Just to clear up this bus stop issue, we were emailed by Carol, and she did clarify this and said that Mrs. Monzalewski was coming back from the grocery store, and she saw Beverly standing at the bus stop. Her son James came home moments later from his job interview, and his mother told him to take Beverly home. Carol also said that the weird thing is She never remembered them ever taking the bus to or from their grandmother's house. It was only a mile walk, no big deal. Now from 12:30 to 1:30, Beverly is now home. Beverly is going to receive and make several phone calls. She receives a call from the jeweler about her great-grandmother's necklace that can't be repaired. She calls her mother to tell her about the necklace. She talks to a girlfriend named Barb Kralik for around 15 minutes. She receives a call from someone and leaves a written message. Steve Stakowitz called. We'll call back later. She receives a call from her grandmother, and according to Mrs. Vanek, Beverly seems rushed, and she states she has to go. At approximately 1:30 p.m.,
That right there, I think, is the key. That phone call with her grandmother. She had to rush off the phone for some reason. Was it because somebody came in and forced her off the phone? Was it because somebody came to the door? Or there still could have been somebody in that house waiting and hiding and waited a certain period of time to jump out on her. That's just an opinion I have, truly. But I think that right there, that phone call, that timeline part, that the timeline within that phone call, I think is probably the key right there in the period of time when this went down.
Barbara Konowski arrives. This part of the timeline is very confusing, but extremely important to this investigation. Barbara's going to go to the front door. She's going to ring the bell. Then she's going to go to the side door. She's going to find that the door is partially open, but the storm door is locked. She's going to go back to the front door.
The side door is partially open, but the storm door on the outside is locked. That's weird. And she was known to always lock the doors when this was all, during this period of time. Hey, Stitch, it's good to see you. Somebody was knocking on the door while she was on the phone. That's kind of, I'm thinking that possibly too, Cap. That's interesting.
Or she's going to read a magazine that was in the mailbox. She hears loud music, and she hears a loud noise coming from upstairs. She says that she thinks Beverly is mad at her because she is so late, and Beverly won't answer the door. So she leaves, and she goes down Turney Road, and a friend of hers picks her up and drives her home. Now, this is solely based on Barbara Konowski's interviews by the police. It's my opinion that creating any scenario of the crime scene from her testimony will only lead one down a rabbit hole. Barbara is dropped off by her mother, Adeline. Her mother is running late, and she doesn't wait for her daughter to get into the house safely. She places her daughter into a predicament that no 16-year-old girl should be in. I believe Barbara Konowski is mostly telling the truth. However, she knew something was wrong at some point, and she was afraid. She left, went home, and never called anyone that can be proved. Margie Gorney had to call her at 2:45 finally to ask her where they were. Barbara is the reason Beverly is home alone that afternoon.
So why would Barbara, if he's saying Barbara knew something was wrong and never said anything, I wonder why. Did anybody have an opinion on that? Because that, as a friend, that's weird. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
A lot about this isn't making a lot of sense, to be honest.
It truly is not. Again, another reason why I wanted to pull this one out. Well, I think they were walking down the street. That one girl was walking down the street critical, and somebody drove by, a friend drove by and saw her and picked her up. Because obviously there was no cell phones back then. There were payphones all over the place in Garfield Heights and Cleveland, and it only cost a nickel to use them. But I think that situation was that somebody was walking and a friend drove by, saw them, and picked him up. Okay, no problem, dial up. That's the only thing I can think of as far as the rides go. The other ride was the neighbor saw her standing at the bus stop and had her son take them home. That's the other one I know of. So
She is Beverly's new best friend. Even if I try to think like a 16-year-old, I can't understand why she would leave without going to her neighbors and telling them something was wrong. We contacted Barbara recently, and she responded that we should find something better to do with our lives. At 4:15 p.m., Ted Jarosz arrives at home. He finds the side door unlocked, the main door partially open, and the back door open. He heads upstairs into the dimly lit room and finds his daughter Beverly lying on the floor in a pool of blood. The firemen are first on the scene, followed by the police. They find a rope with square knots tied in it, and Beverly's diary is missing. It appears that the killer headed out the back door. For weeks and months after, the Garfield Heights Police, the Cleveland Police, and the FBI ensued an extensive investigation, perhaps the largest in the history of the state of Ohio. Hundreds of people were interviewed. For 60 years, amateur detectives, web sleuths, and just about everyone from that area had their usual list of suspects. From ex-boyfriends to neighbors, 60 years and not one arrest was made. The case went cold. What happened to Beverly Jarosz in 1964 devastated all of us who lived in Garfield Heights, Ohio. The echoes of this murder will resonate for an eternity unless this crime is solved. When I see this photo of Mr. and Mr. Jarosz and their daughter Carol, it breaks my heart to see the bewilderment and sorrow in their eyes. I believe that sometimes justice can only be sought through the Lord and prayer. The Holy Spirit speaks to us. We just have to listen.
Where did you grow up, and when did you first hear about Beverly Jarosz?
My family lived on Royal Boulevard, which is off of 136th and Granger. And I heard about Beverly Jarosz through my mother. She had not much of a filter, so she talked about it with her friends and talked about it in great detail. It's quite scary for a 6-year-old. Before that time, we left our doors unlocked. We had no worries in Garfield Heights, but that all changed after December 28th, 1964. Yeah, I believe that the wheels were set in motion when I was probably around 10 years old. I was with my mother, and we were driving down Garfield Parkway, and she was talking about Beverly Jarosz, and I just happened to be staring at the houses on Edge Park, Garfield Parkway, and Greenview, and from that day on, I just associated Beverly Jarosz with that neighborhood. I always believed that she was murdered there. As a teenager, into my 30s, and even up until the time I was 62 years old, and my wife and I had gone back to Garfield Heights. I showed her those houses, and I said, this is where this girl was murdered when I was 6 years old. So that didn't come into play until many, many years later when. This all started during COVID back in May of 2020. I wasn't able to work, so I was up later than usual. I don't know why, but the thought crossed my mind about Beverly Jarosz, and I wondered if anyone was ever caught for her murder. To be honest, it's been so long, I had forgotten her last name, and I had to search it. I found an article and noticed that she lived on Thornton Avenue. I searched to see where Thornton was, and I couldn't believe it wasn't where I thought she lived my entire life. The next day, I told my wife, Christine, about this. I told her something feels terribly wrong. I kept thinking about it for a few days until one night I had an incredible, overwhelming feeling that something in that neighborhood, something happened there. and it had to do with Beverly Jarosz. A couple weeks passed, and I listened to a Shane Waters Crimecast. It's a very good podcast with Carol Bartos, Detective Carl Bagecki, Eleanor Jarosz, and at the end, a psychic from California gives a reading. While I was listening to the psychic, she says the name Tom or Tommy. She also says she sees the number 99, and she sees it real big. Now, I don't believe in psychics very much. I think it's mostly baloney, but I do believe that God works in mysterious ways. I have a very open mind to what I can't explain. Now, I couldn't get this out of my head, and I kept thinking, 99 Tom, 99 Tom. And then a couple days later, I just naturally thought, what if 99 is an address? And what I did was I Google mapped the area and those homes, and I wasn't even surprised that the first 5 or 6 homes from Turney Road start with the number 99. Now, my next mission was to find out who lived in these homes in 1964. And perhaps there was someone named Tom. But the best I could do was a 1940 census. But it was May of 2020, and the 72-year rule was about to come up in 2 weeks, and I was about to get the 1950 census.
Are you concerned that mentioning that all of this started with what a psychic said in a podcast is going to turn people off?
As soon as you say the word, psychic, people are going to start rolling their eyes. And it was a battle for me at first too, because I go, am I serious about this? I'm going on this journey because of something a psychic said. Yeah. But when you hear the story and you see all the coincidences and how this number 99 and Tom named Tom led me directly to Beverly Jarosz and Thornton Avenue, and then you start seeing all the coincidences that happen following that over the next 4 years, it's pretty convincing. So the 1950 census came out, and I started to check the homes with the address that began with 99 to find a Tom or Tommy that lived there that would have been in his from 18 to late 20s in 1964. I couldn't find any Thomas on Garfield Parkway. So I decided that I was going to look at the next 3 streets, and that would have been Greenview, Parkview, and Edgewood. And I did. I looked at all those homes, and finally I found one, Thomas, that lived there in 1950 at 9913 Greenview Avenue. And if you look at the homes on Garfield Parkway that I was showing you before, as I zoom in between those homes is the next street, and that is 9913 Greenview. Now, by this time, my curiosity level had spiked, and I at least had to know who this Thomas was. Also, remember, I didn't know anything about the locations of the friends and relatives related to this case, except for that Beverly lived on Thornton Avenue, a few houses from the corner off Attorney Road. Next, I simply Googled his name and added Garfield Heights, Ohio, and an obituary came up. Thomas died in 2005, and this was noted. Retired as captain of the Garfield Heights Fire Department after 35 years of service. I immediately had to know where the fire department was located. I discovered that it was on Turney Road between McCracken Road and Thornton Avenue, just 3 houses from the Jarosz home. I thought to myself, wow, someone could simply cut through the backyard in seconds if they had access to the firehouse. After more research with the help of Ancestry.com, I found out Thomas lived on Royal Boulevard at some point. I wouldn't find out until much later
Welcome,
in April
Jody.
this year his complete residence history. Now, I don't know if you're seeing a pattern of coincidence that are related to my childhood, but as I mentioned earlier, I grew up on Royal Boulevard and later moved to Thomas Street. These freakish coincidences just kept popping up after everything that I researched, every stone I unturned kept leading me to this fireman, which eventually compelled me to go to the police with my story. But let's move on. Now, this is 9913 Greenview, and this is the home of Thomas. Now, Thomas didn't live there in 1964, but his parents did, and he would have had access to that home. But I needed to find out where Mrs. Vanek lived. That was Beverly's grandmother, and that's where she was that day on Dorothy Avenue. And as you look at this overhead Google Earth map, you can see that 9913 is the red dot, and Mrs. Vanek's home on Dorothy Avenue is the green dot, just a very short distance away. I didn't know when Thomas moved to Royal Boulevard. I do know that he is married in 63, 64. His wife divorces him on the grounds of extreme cruelty. Interestingly, he is married 1 year later to a woman whose name is Beverly. Now, all these coincidences are certainly not enough to cause me to go to the police.
Okay, here's a question. Back in 1960, whatever, what is extreme cruelty considered to be to lead to a divorce? Meaning, like physically abusive, mentally abusive, or is there something else? Does anybody know what that means? That's maybe been around a little bit longer than me, and how, in that context, what that would mean. I've never heard that before, as far as divorce being granted for that. Maybe not. I'll have to look that up then, because nobody seems to know. Not providing. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Stitches. Interesting. This is interesting.
Although it was convincing to me personally, it wouldn't be until I met Scarlett Vinson on the Facebook group page, The Legacy of Beverly JAROZ, that it became a reality. Now, this is Barbara Kammerer. I wasn't going to mention her, but today I got a message from Scarlett, and she said that the detective that took over from Detective Horgan, his name was Vince Raymond, he always thought it was a woman. So I thought I would add this just in case. Barbara graduated with Thomas in 1957.
Okay. Doodle says physical or mental harm. That's what I wondered, because I had never heard that one before. So I wondered if it was physical abuse per se, or some kind of abuse. Thank you, Doodle. Good to see you, by the way, dear. Thank you for jumping in here. One moment, guys. I don't think you sent me anything, Sherry. If you did, it's not in. Hold on. One moment. Where the heck is it? Over here? I don't see it, Sherry. I'm sorry, hon. Yes, good to see you, Doodle. Thank you for being here and listening. Appreciate you. Is this something you put in back chat, Arctic, about this, or is it something else?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. We'll go back to that then. Thank you, sir. So probably physical, mental abuse. Oh, there it is. Miss Sherry popped up now. Give me 1 second, guys. An extreme cruelty divorce refers to a legal grounds for dissolving a marriage based on one spouse's pattern of behavior that causes significant mental or physical harm, which is relating to what Doodle said, to the other spouse, often including physical violence, severe emotional abuse, threats, and extreme forms of controlling behavior, making it impossible to. So he was a piece of shit, basically. Physically, mentally, emotionally abusive, controlling, a little bit everything. Okay, that's why he divorced this other woman. And that, like I said, goes back to what Doodle said. That's just a little bit more of a detailed situation. Thank you both, Miss Sherry and Miss Doodle. All right, so that explains that. So if this guy's like this, I almost wonder if this is... I'll come back to this thought.
In fact, she was on the list, a small list of classmates on classmates.com for 1957. The interesting thing was her name is the only one that's highlighted. And it's highlighted because she's the only one who ever posted a picture of herself from that class. Now, I seen it several times, and it just kept popping up on my radar. So finally, I decided to check it out. And it turns out that she lived on South Highland, which is right across the street from Thornton. It's actually like a continuation of Thornton on the other side of Turney. And her address was 9909. Now, I don't know what that means, if that means anything. I don't see any connection with her in Beverly, but I just thought that I would add that. Oh, and also, Barbara's mother grew up on 10202 Greenview Avenue, just 7 houses away from where Thomas grew up. It's time now to talk a little about Beverly so we can understand what her life is like in the year 1964. Beverly is a very sweet 16-year-old Catholic school student. She loves poetry, classical music, going to the art museum, and writing in her journal. Her favorite album that year is Camelot with Robert Goulet. She's not at all promiscuous. She has a boyfriend, but has strict dating guidelines from her parents. And reading her poetry she wrote, she's humorous and very much a romantic at heart. And during the summer of '64, late July and August specifically, Beverly receives gifts from a secret admirer, a ring, bracelet, and brooch left at the back door and at the mailbox of her home on Thornton Avenue. It's still a mystery today of who left those gifts. And by the end of the year, the household is receiving several hang-up phone calls. We're going to list the locations that Beverly would occupy most frequently in 1964. Of course, number one would be her home on Thornton Avenue. This is where she sleeps, eats, and arrives and leaves from. There is no question most of her time is spent here. Number two, Marymount High School. Excluding the summer months, Beverly attends school every day. This means taking the city bus on Turney Road near the firehouse and being dropped off at her school on Granger Road and 126th Street. She most likely spent time at the shrine on the school grounds. Number three, Beverly's grandmother, Mrs. Vanek. Beverly loves her grandmother and goes weekly to visit her and fix her hair. Beverly also goes to the library often, which in 1964 is directly across from the firehouse on South Highland Drive. Beverly is murdered in her own home in her bedroom at 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. Only a few of her relatives and her best friend knew she was home alone. All of her circle of friends, relatives, and neighbors, and many more, were investigated and interviewed. It's quite clear that knowing Beverly's habits and activities that she's not a secretive person. She has no involvement with anyone that her family or friends wouldn't know about. It appears that Beverly was being watched at her usual locations for quite a while by someone, and especially on that day in December of 1964. Beverly did keep a diary, however, which has been missing since the day of her death. It's quite probable that Beverly's killer kept showing up at these locations. The mystery gifts, the stalking of this person, were more than likely something she would enter in her diary. It's clear and obvious that her killer thought so also. We will never know. The diary is gone. Now, by 2022, I reached a dead end. I still had several unanswered questions. I didn't even know for sure if Thomas actually worked for the fire department in 1964. And I didn't know his actual place of residence at the time. I couldn't find proof if Beverly was actually at the bus stop leaving her grandmother's house to go home. I had no empirical evidence at all. Feeling frustrated, I stepped away. My mental capacity was exhausted. It wasn't until March of 2024 when I met Scarlett Vincent on the Facebook group page, The Legacy of Beverly JAROZ, that everything changed. For 6 months working together as a team, springboarding ideas, researching everything related to this case and beyond, we eventually got the answers to those questions and much more. I could feel God was guiding us every day, and my faith grew stronger and stronger.
Okay, any thoughts, anybody, before we move on?
What I put in back chat was the most informative information that I could find on the internet.
Bingo. Thank you, sir. All right, one moment here. The most informative info. There we go. Who would know where her diary was? Most women don't leave that just laying out, especially with siblings. That's true. A good friend or a boyfriend, maybe. A good friend that may, I don't know if it spent the night, but you know what I mean? So, 60 years ago today, Beverly JAROZ was murdered in her home of the Cleveland suburb of Garfield Heights on December 28th of 64. The medical examiner who also worked on the Cleveland torso murders, which is another one we're going to look into. Pretty wild case too. And served in World War II, described it as the most horrifying scene. Who killed her? Let me see here. Beverly JAROZ was a 16-year-old living in Garfield Heights, Ohio, when she was brutally murdered in her home December 28th of 1964. By all accounts, she was popular, intelligent, kind-hearted, and she was very attractive and had many male admirers. Most of the male admirers were boys she went to school with and young men in her neighborhood, but there were a few admirers that were older men who were out of her age bracket. That's what I was wondering, too. Welcome back, Lone Bear. She also had a boyfriend as well as an ex-boyfriend. Throughout the year of 64, before the murder, there were some weird and unsettling disturbances, like multiple phone calls a day where the caller hung up immediately after someone just answered the phone and an unsigned present left for Beverly in her backyard. The most disturbing occurrence of them all is when Beverly's dad came home from work one night to find a man looking up at the window of the bedroom Beverly shared with her sister. Now, see, they keep saying a man. Are they saying that in just layman's terms, or are they saying it because it wasn't a boy, like an older teenage boy, or that it was an actual man? You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's kind of important to this. Beverly shared with her. Beverly's dad chased the man, but he managed to get away after being chased for a block. Let's see. On December 28th of 64, Beverly had plans to go to the mall with her friends, Barbara and Margie, in the afternoon. Before that, Beverly and her sister went to their grandmother's house for lunch. After their parents left for work earlier that morning, they arrived there around 10:30 a.m. Beverly stayed at her grandmother's for about an hour and a half as she needed to get home to get ready to meet with Barbara. As they were meeting Margie at her house, Beverly got driven home by the young man, Misluski, I think it was, who was a neighbor of her grandmother's, and arrived home shortly before 12:30 p.m. In between the time that she got home and the time that she got murdered, there were 3 phone calls made to the house. The call that stood out was the second of the 3, from an unknown man who referred to himself as Steve Stakowitz, who apparently wanted to know if her father was home. The last of these 3 calls was from her concerned grandma at 1:15 p.m. Does it say what time the Steve call was? No. Okay. The last of these 3 calls were from concerned grandma at around 1:15, but Beverly told her she had to hang up right after confirming that she got home safe, as it seemed like Barbara was at the door. So therefore, she told her somebody was at the door, or she heard the door. It turned out Barbara was reportedly running late, and she got dropped off at Beverly's house by her mom at 1:25. So that's a 10-minute difference between 1:15 and 1:25. Which tells me that that person could have been at the door. Whoever that person was could have been at the door, forced their way in, or came in and she heard the door. And in that, well, this Barbara said she heard loud music and noises upstairs when she knocked on the door. So within that 10-minute period of time is when this all seems to have possibly happened. Barbara said she rang the doorbell multiple times, got no response, but she heard loud classical music blasting from inside the house, as well as an extremely loud thud, like someone knocking over a dresser. Barbara said that she ended up leaving after waiting for a while, assuming that Beverly was mad at her for being late. When her 2 friends didn't show up at her house, Margie called Barbara. That's when ultimately Beverly's grandmother was called. She got Beverly's father to leave from work to go back to the house and check up on things. All this took at least a couple of hours to unfold. Between 4 and 4:30, around 3 hours later, Beverly's dad comes home, finds her dead in the room. Hold on a minute, you guys. Guys, give me 1 second to finish reading this. My son needs me real quick. You guys, I'm sorry about that. The scene was so horrifying to local police that they called Cleveland Police Department for help. The medical examiner who also worked on the Cleveland torso murders, as well as the police captain who became lead detective for Garfield Heights, described it as the most horrifying scene they had ever witnessed. Beverly was stabbed multiple times with numerous stab wounds all over her body. She was strangled with a rope and had been partially undressed. The killer seemed to stab in intervals of 3. Judging from looking at her body, footprints were found in a patch of sand by the curb, but were not helpful. Even though it was winter, there was no snow on the ground. The killer's escape route was through the backyard, as there was a police dog who followed a scent from the room and out the back door. Beverly's hair was also found in a bush in the backyard. That's wild. The police interviewed hundreds of people. Many of Beverly's male friends came in voluntarily and were fingerprinted and polygraphed, and all of them passed. There were many leads that led nowhere. The odd thing did happen 7 years after the murder. Thaddeus and Eleanor JAROZ were still living in the same house where their daughter Beverly had been murdered. Their other daughter Carol was not living with them, as she was in college at this point. One day, when Thaddeus and Eleanor were at a funeral for a neighbor, someone broke into the house, and only one thing was stolen. It being a gold watch. It looked like someone broke into the house to look for something. 2 prints that were framed and were hanging up on a wall were taken down, and their backing was torn out. The prints were copies of Beverly's 2 favorite paintings. What the person was looking for, and if they found it, this is a mystery. Now that's wild. Huh. There are well over a dozen people that the police and or public either found interesting or could not count on. I will list the people in no specific order of how likely, unlikely that they are as suspects, folks. Of course, James Mondzelewski, the 18-year-old that drove her home, and his parents, Sonia and Johnny Mondzelewski, were neighbors of Beverly's grandparents when James' mom, Sonia, saw Beverly walking to the nearby bus stop. To take the bus, she asked James to drive Beverly home, as it was cold out, being winter and all. Because of how often Beverly visited grandparents who lived a mile away, she was likely familiar enough with James to get in his car with him alone. James said that it took 15 minutes to drive Beverly home, after which James returned home, changed his clothes, and had lunch. But didn't they say that was like, what, a mile away?
I think so.
Yeah, a mile or 2 away. Why would it take 15 minutes to drive a mile away and back? That's literally like going to the end of my road and back. That shouldn't take 15 minutes, I wouldn't think, at least. Well, okay. Anyway. He came home and changed his clothes and had lunch. James didn't go inside or stick around to chat with Beverly after dropping her off. Why did he change his clothes?
That's a good question.
That is weird. Welcome, Far. Good to see you, dear. Thank you so much for gifting that membership. God bless. Let's see who got it real quick.
Elizabeth Lander couldn't have gone to a nicer woman.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for that. And welcome to the sauce, Elizabeth. God bless. We appreciate that so very much, Far. Thank you, dear. Thank you for being here with us. Excuse me.
Elizabeth.
What'd you say, Mama Bear?
I said, congratulations, Elizabeth.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. It took 15 minutes to drive a mile or 2. And then he came home and changed his clothes. That's the only like weird issue I have with that. But if he really did only go in and, didn't go in, went, dropped her off and came right back, maybe the timing's off. I don't know. Okay.
Well, and we also have to keep in mind that this is Reddit, so take it for what it is. But this was the most thorough write-up that I've ever seen on this case. So
it is really, really detailed. I like this. Thank you for finding it. Normally, I wouldn't run to that, but sometimes, it's based off of factual things that were put out. So,
And this one
James,
lists all the sources down below. That's why
Hmm.
I feel more comfortable going with it. So
That's awesome. Absolutely. Like I said, sometimes it is a good tool, guys. Sometimes it's crazy. You know what I mean? It just depends. This case is so old that there's probably nobody, there's no way to, twist this up on a Reddit post, truly, because you'd say Reddit back in 1964, they'd laughed at you and said, God bless you or something. James drove Marie Vanek to Jaroz's house to be with family afterwards. As Sonia Mondzelewski asked James to drive Beverly's grandmother over to the Jarosz house later in the day on the 28th, because James was the last person to see Beverly alive outside of her killer. Garfield Heights PD brought James up in the room to show James Beverly's body to see his reaction. Garfield Heights PD didn't see anything out of the ordinary in James' character, so James was ruled out pretty quickly. James is currently an eye doctor in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's pretty wild. I didn't know they did that kind of stuff back then. They wanted to see his reaction. That's a good way to get somebody to tell on themselves in some sense, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Great to see you, Squishy. Thank you for joining us. That's true too. That's a good point, Squishy. Thank you for that. She said he may have wanted to change his clothes because he'd been to an interview, so would have been in smart clothes. Good point. Good point. Gotcha. Good point. Good points. So let's see. Okay, Larry Young. They questioned him, whose mother, Stella Young, badmouthed Beverly after she either rejected Larry or dumped Larry after dating Larry for a bit. There have been differing reports as to whether Larry was legitimately dating Beverly or if he simply was infatuated with her. What is known is that Larry was heartbroken over Beverly, and Larry's mother, Stella Young, hated Beverly. There's a good point right there. That would be a good one to look into. I'm going to write him down, actually. Okay. And then we have, let's see. According to a man named Robert, whose parents were friends with the Youngs, Stella was mentally deranged, and Robert claimed that Larry's dad told Robert's dad that Stella killed Beverly. Wow, I never thought of that. That's interesting as hell. So Stella would have been this kid's mother and said she hated her. Now think of that, the way that Beverly was killed, stabbed 40-some times with anger and rage. If you hurt my baby boy, I'll show you. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting theory. I don't know what Stella was built like, but if Beverly was just a small thing, it would be easy to overpower her, and that would be somebody she would probably let in the house too. Think about that. You're not going to think that, an ex-boyfriend or somebody that you know's mother is going to hurt you. That's interesting. That's really interesting. That gives motive. That gives ability. I never thought of that. Stella Young. Huh. Okay. Thank you, SRB. I appreciate that very much. Believe that not only would Larry's dad sell out his wife, but that Robert's parents wouldn't come forward either way. Stella and Larry were ruled out. Okay. And that's only because of that. James Krojcik reports interviewed a middle-aged neighbor named James Krojcik, maybe I'm saying it wrong, who claimed to have seen Beverly's killer run from the house. James Krojcik was home because of the white motor strike, and his wife confirmed to journalists that he often stood by the window looking at Beverly's house, saying sometimes he even gets up at night to look out the window. I guess he likes the view. Sounds like a pervert to me. Is that the guy that ran off when her father caught somebody looking at the window, maybe?
Possibly.
Mm-hmm. Creeper. I guess he likes the view. James Krosick later admitted to police that he made up the name to get himself in the paper. His child worked with Beverly's ex-boyfriend, Daniel Schulte, at the car wash, although his child was definitely younger than Daniel. Because Beverly hung out there, the Krosick child knew her, and his name has come up over the years as well. Daniel Schulte was Beverly's 19-year-old ex-boyfriend. This is the greaser kid that I was thinking of, and he was 19, she was 16, so he was a little older. A bad boy ex and a greaser in the teen circles of the time. Daniel and Beverly hung out when he was 17, okay, and she was 14. But they weren't allowed to formally date because Beverly's parents didn't allow it. Unlike a lot of boys who Beverly went out with, Daniel was a steady boyfriend. Daniel's idea of a date was making out behind the car wash. Daniel dropped out of high school in grade 10 and enlisted in the Air Corps, but was back in town for Christmas. Although Daniel was dating a new girl, it was known that he still pined for Beverly. Beverly's friends were chagrined because they thought Daniel was a bad influence. Margie told GHPD that Beverly would never have thought of doing the things with Roger that she did with Daniel. Schulte hung out with the rough greaser crowd, trying to imitate James Dean, who was an American actor in the 1950s, being remembered as a cultural icon of disillusionment and social estrangement. Carol said Beverly broke the relationship with Daniel when she was in 10th grade, but author James Badal said Daniel was Beverly's boyfriend until March of 1963. Okay. Which is when Beverly was in the 9th grade. Badal's account is accurate. Daniel took it hard, sending flowers and Easter basket letters and showing up at her all-girls Catholic school after class. That also makes, if he was sending things, he could have been the one sending the gifts, the bracelets and things like that. Schulte claimed to have been working when Beverly was killed and showed a time card supporting his claim. Okay. However, his next-door neighbor claims to have seen him arrive home in a hurry. He was associated with a group of other bad people at the time. Daniel showed up at Beverly's viewing with a girl at his side, but returned later alone and sat quietly by himself. While on leave, Daniel had picked up some part-time work and produced a time card that showed that he was on the clock when Beverly was murdered. The woman who lived next door to Daniel told GHPD that she had seen Daniel come home that day and run inside in a hurry. She watched Daniel in the reflection of her garage window. Daniel was given a lie detector because of this, which Daniel passed. It is notable, though, that the tests in 1964 weren't as reliable as they are today, and it also was known that in 1964, people didn't know the things you could do to pass a lie detector, by the way, guys, back then. So there's that, too.
Well, and lie detectors are pseudoscience anyway. That's why they're not allowed in court. I take them with a grain of salt.
Very true. Very true. In the 2010s, Carol said that she wrote Daniel an email thanking him for sponsoring Beverly's page on Find a Grave website. And Daniel wrote Carol a very nice note. Carol and Daniel have exchanged a few emails since Beverly's 50th anniversary. Because of this, people on social media thought Carol was being easy on Daniel and trying to give Daniel a pass. On December 28th of 2016, the 52nd anniversary of Beverly's murder, Carol said that she had not given Daniel a pass at all. After Carol contacted Daniel to thank him for sponsoring Beverly's Find a Grave, she gave Detective Carl Bagaki Daniel's email address, and Carl had a few questions he wanted to ask Daniel, but Daniel didn't reply to Carl. Carol pleaded with Daniel a couple times via email asking Daniel to communicate with Carl, but Daniel did not reply. The aforementioned above, as well as the fact that Daniel left the country shortly after Beverly Jaroz's case was reopened in 2004, kept Daniel on Carol's list at the time of the 52nd anniversary of Beverly's murder. That would keep my eyes on it too, that's for sure. However, in July of 2021, Carol seemingly changed her mind on Daniel, as she said that she only had 2 people on her list, and neither one of the people she named were Daniel. It is honestly very possible that Daniel not taking the GHPD, not talking with GHPD in recent years, could be because he wanted to get away from the case, as he was still hurting over Beverly, and that is a possibility too.
I think that's very likely. Why else would he sponsor her Find a Grave page and everything else? I mean, I think that he never got over her.
Right.
Sounds like he was still in love with her when she passed away. So,
and by sponsoring that, it's going to bring attention right back to him. He knew that. So,
yeah,
in turn, that would be dumb if you're the one that did this, in my opinion. So that makes sense. Roger was studious and religious and was well liked by the Jarosz family. Roger was a Republican, and Roger attended Latin Mass and spoke out against the liberal alterations of Vatican II. Carol, who had never cared for Daniel, liked Roger, as Roger... Wait a minute, I went way too far ahead. Sorry, guys. Roger McNamara, my apologies. Beverly's 19-year-old boyfriend at the time of her murder, Roger, met Beverly through his cousin Margie, Beverly's best friend. Margie's and Roger's moms worked at a bank, described as a straight-laced conservative college student having very strict moral attitudes. So quite the opposite of her ex-boyfriend, Daniel Schulte. Roger was studious and religious and was very well liked by the Jarosz family. We went through all of that. Carol, who had never cared for Daniel, liked Roger. As Roger treated her well, Beverly particularly enjoyed attending parties at Roger's fraternity and meeting Roger's older educated friends. Roger and Beverly had long-term plans. Roger would take Beverly to the museum and the music carnival. Roger was due to take Beverly to winter formal. Roger claimed to have been homesick working on his car when Beverly was killed, and GHPD considered Roger's alibi weak. Let's see here. I hate when I do that. I read forward on something that catches my ideas. Roger's car was blue, and he loved to keep it clean. Roger was given a polygraph, also which he passed. Horgan said to Cleveland Press that there are some elements to Roger's present story that bother us. Roger was at a party the previous night, which was at Beverly's house. And he and Beverly went out at some point and were lovey-dovey, according to Carol. So it does seem unlikely that they'd be on bad terms the following day. I got to agree with that, but you never know. Roger's first polygraph was inconclusive, but he passed the second one. However, lie detector tests in 64 weren't nearly as reliable as they are today. Even today are inadmissible. I'm sorry. Carol said that she couldn't know for sure, but she believes that Roger was lead detective William Horrigan's top suspect, so much so that Horrigan only focused on Roger. That's not good. William Horrigan, the Garfield Heights lead detective in the 60s, believed that something happened when Beverly and Roger went out on 12/27 of 64, which led to 12/28 of 64's events. Carol did say that Roger maintained contact with her mom, Eleanor, through the years. At some point, Roger got married, had children, then got divorced. Roger worked for a bunch of financial firms over the years and supposedly has a nasty demeanor. Roger remains a steadfast Republican and Catholic. Roger McNamara was living in Northeast Ohio in 2008, but appears to be living in Silverdale, Washington now. And it turns out that Horrigan was wrong, as Roger was cleared by GHPD in recent years. They must have done that. They must have done the that whatchamacallit, if they cleared him. So I can't think of it right now. Sorry. Also, John Pallion, Beverly's 18-year-old neighbor, who lived 2 houses east of the JAROZ household. John Pallion went to St. Therese Elementary School with Beverly, although was 3 years older. Pallion's dad fixed TVs, and John's dad came over to the JAROZ household a couple of times to fix TV tubes. John was stated to have an eye for Beverly by neighbors and admitted that he would spy on Beverly sunbathing in her backyard during the summer months. He was also home alone at the time, so there was no one who can vouch for him. He was stated by classmates to be shy, so it's possible that he was the one who left the anonymous gifts for Beverly because he couldn't muster the courage to speak to her directly. There were no fences separating John's backyard from the Samgulis families or Beverly's, so leaving the gifts would be of low to no difficulty. Moreover, Pallion did not pass a lie detector test as it was inconclusive, and according to a coworker, was asking how to pass one. Well, that's interesting. At some point, Detective Carl Bagacki considered that it could have been John Pallion, since JP admitted he'd watch her sunbathing from his bedroom window. And that could be the guy that the father saw watching her through the window, too. Welcome back, Brutally. Good to see you. That's an interesting piece of information there. I didn't even think about that. John married a psychologist at some point. Pallion was contacted by crime author James Renner in the 2000s and told Renner that any request for an interview should go through Pallion's lawyer, Jay Milano. Pallion told Renner that GHPD recently spoke to him, and Pallion said that he was being framed and there was a cover-up going on. Additionally, Pallion's sister was approached by GHPD at work, was questioned for over an hour, and lawyered up. GHPD wanted to know if she just disposed of the knife for her brother. But a big thing that has always pointed away from Pallion is that Beverly most likely would have had the doors locked and was extremely familiar with him. It's hard to see Beverly being comfortable with John being in the house, as she was skeptical of men and knew that she had a stalker. Moreover, Pallion also said to be a sissy by those that knew him. James Renner and Pallion was his pick back then, but that Carl Bagacki and GHPD pretty much ruled Pallion out in recent years, so Renner doesn't think Pallion did it any longer. Bruce Billick, a 21-year-old college student living directly behind the JAROZ household in 1964. The JAROZ family knew Bruce better than they knew John because they saw Bruce working all the time at the library, and Bruce went to their church. There were a couple of times when Beverly went to later church service than Carol and Eleanor, and Bruce would drive Beverly home. So Bruce and Beverly were not only better acquainted than Beverly was with John, but they were quite familiar with one another. He claimed to have been in his garage working on his car, which is supported by his parents. Yeah, but if he's in the garage and he lived right behind them, he could sneak out real quick, do what he had to do, and come back. Bruce could have had a potential line of sight for Beverly getting dropped off by James Mon Deslewski, depending on if his either garage door was open or if he was outside of his garage when Beverly got dropped off. That's true, too. It is notable that he became an art teacher at a high school afterwards, and he reportedly asked female students to pose in bikinis. Oh, that's cute. So he could take photos of them. He made at least a couple of his female students uncomfortable, and he made a student's assistant so uncomfortable that she left her job. So we got another perv here. There was some sort of joke going on in Beverly's friend circle where Beverly was teased about Bruce having the hots for her. Bruce was questioned after GHPD saw a note Beverly had written to Margie. Beverly's note said, Bruce came over to see what I look like when I'm not dressed. I have my blue robe on and my hair is still in curlers. Bruce said he didn't ever really talk to Beverly, which was not true. Bruce's alibi was considered solid, so he was never given a polygraph. It is notable, however, that parents would usually protect their children even if they think or know that their child was guilty. Additionally, Bruce's parents definitely could have been keeping an eye on him the whole time because they were in the house doing stuff. So that is noteworthy. Couldn't have been keeping an eye on him, sorry. Harry Maddall, 17-year-old door-to-door salesman who moved to Garfield Heights in September of 64, 3 months before Beverly's murder. Harry's parents divorced by the time he was 5. Harry's father lived in Michigan, and Harry's mother's house, which was on East 141st Street in Garfield Heights, was a 15-minute walk from Jaroz's house. Harry lived at his mother's right off McCracken Road on East 141st Street, which was around a mile from Marymount and around a mile from the Jarosz house. Give or take for both. Harry was violent by age 2 and accused of breaking and entering at age 9. Jesus. Harry was out of 17 behavioral institutions and schools by 17. Good Lord. After moving to Garfield Heights in September of 64, Harry started working at Hale's department store in Cleveland, where Jarosz family shopped at. Harry also worked at Burroughs and Southgate because Harry moved to Garfield Heights at the end of September of 64. None of the stalking could have been him. Harry was living in Michigan in a reformatory school for hardcore juvenile sex offenders during the summer of 64. Harry had just got released from there at the time of his move to Garfield Heights. That's interesting. Excuse me. The anonymous gifts could have been from Harry because the box with the bracelet addressed to Beverly was left in June, according to Beverly's sister. The hang-up calls also started in the summer, so Harry would not have been the one to make them. Moreover, Thaddeus saw the man looking up at the window. Beverly's bedroom was in the summer as well. Unlike the others who Beverly was acquainted with, the main argument for Harry Maddall, possibly being Beverly's killer, is that he was has a violent criminal record, and Harry attacked 3 women at knife point in 1963 before the move to Garfield Heights. By age 17, dude. Oh, God. By age 17, Harry had raped his stepmother and threatened to kill his half-siblings. The reason Harry was sent to the reform school for sex offenders is because of the sexual assault to his stepmother. Jesus, this dude needed locked up, period.
Yep.
That's insane. Harry stabbed a pregnant housewife named Gerda Lee on February 16th of 65, a little over a month and a half after Beverly's murder. Gerda Lee's husband was an Illyria radio broadcaster. When Cleveland detectives found Harry after stabbing Gerda Lee, he was at the Embassy Apartments at Prospect Avenue in a closet hiding. Cleveland detectives were also working on the Beverly Jarosz case, and they noticed that Harry had 3 scars on him, 2 on his face and a 2-inch scar on his wrist. According to Beverly's sister, Carol, Harry couldn't account for his whereabouts between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. on December 28th, although in the papers it said that Harry stated that he was at Hale's. He also confessed to Beverly's murder, then recanted it when Detective William Horrigan, and GHPD started speaking to Harry after Harry confesses. Harry was given a totally different layout of the house, as well as giving different times and different things that happened at Beverly's. The knife used to stab Gerda Lee was also smaller than the one used to stab Beverly. Harry didn't give anything consistent with what really happened. When asked about why Harry confessed, Harry said, because you guys are going to pin it on me anyway. And that I've heard before. Harry took 4 polygraphs regarding Beverly, and all polygraphs were inconclusive. Lee Teeters, who was considered an expert, administered the polygraph. Harry Maddle's fingerprints were also inconclusive. Recent GHPD lead detective Carl Bagaki said GHPD polygraphed Harry and inconclusive, but I got a handful of other people that were inconclusive too. See, this polygraph thing, I can't even think that it's even remotely, it just doesn't matter because like you said, it's junk science. So this guy sounds like he could be possibly one of the one that did it, possibly, you know what I mean? But how many other people do they have?
Oh, it's an extensive list. I mean, like I said, that's why I sent that write-up to you because it is
Right.
very detailed and everything. And I know it's probably going to cause us to run long, and I apologize for that, but I want to get as much of the information out as we can.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it too, bud. The fact that this guy raped his stepmother, that's just woof. That's enough to push me over the edge with this one. The original lead detective at the time in 1964, Mr. Horrigan, had 72 hours to link Harry Maddle to Beverly JAROZ, as he had to return Maddle to Illyria's police to stand trial for the Gerda Leedy stabbing, and decided it was plenty of time to determine that Henry Maddle didn't do it. The paper stated that Horrigan said that the man arrested outside Illyria, referring to Harry, probably was not important in the case. Horrigan said to reporters, "If I thought he was a hot suspect, I would have gone out last night." Well, there's that. On the 17th of 1965, the Akron Beacon-Journal posted about Harry. The Akron Beacon-Journal said Harry got arrested in Cleveland the day of the publishing. The Akron Beacon-Journal said that Harry denied Jaroz's slaying but admitted to stabbing Gerda Leedy. After the journal stated that Harry said he was working at Hales on December 28th of 64, the journal also said that Horrigan said if Maddle's alibi doesn't check out, he looks to me like a hot suspect. Because of this, Carol Jaroz's statement that Harry Maddle couldn't account for his whereabouts between 12 and 5 on December 28th is very debatable. Harry Maddle said that he always carried a knife and often made knives. Harry Maddle was chased out of Lyndhurst for high-pressure tactics as a salesman. As a housewife called police saying Harry was too persistent in sales tactics, it turned out that Harry was selling without a sales permit as well. Figure that out. Maddle was tried as an adult for the Gerda Leedy stabbing and was sentenced to 1 to 20 years in 1972. Sorry, Maddle was granted parole, but he broke his parole and fled Ohio. For the next 18 years after that, Maddle's life would be one of fleeing and eluding authorities, using women, doing scams, fighting extradition in Atlanta and Quebec, and after being convicted of federal scams in federal court in 1990, Maddle fled to Canada. It would take the RCMP almost 3 years to apprehend Maddle and to come to Atlanta to stand trial for the federal scams and parole violation in the Gerda Leedy case. Harry would go on to live in England for a number of years in the early 2000s, like around 2002 to 06 or 02 to 08. Harry's most recently known financial scam was in Austria in 06. Harry is believed to be living in Europe, Germany being a front runner, but Switzerland and Sweden being possibilities as well. This dude's a mess. Good Lord. Keep in mind, there is also no actual evidence that Harry knew Beverly in the 3 months in between the time he moved to Garfield Heights and Beverly's murder. He worked at a place where Beverly went to on occasion, so while it's possible they crossed paths, it's nothing but speculation. The only things that would make him plausible are his confession and his violent crimes. Moreover, the only way it could have been him is if Beverly left her door unlocked that day, which is very highly unlikely. The house was not broken into, so there's the answer to that question. I've been looking for that to see if, hey, Mama Duck, good to see you, dear. If there was any kind of forced entry shown, but it shows that there wasn't, so good. So there is no way Beverly would have allowed a random male, especially a creepy one, in the house, so Maddle's only chance would have been if the door was open. And it looks like we even have Barbara Klanowski, Beverly's friend, who was supposed to... I've questioned her too, you guys, to be honest with you. It just seems a little... There's something a little suspicious about her to me. A little sus, I'll say that. Beverly's friend who was supposed to meet her that day, Beverly and Barbara, were acquaintances in earlier grades, but didn't start hanging out until 11th grade, when they started going downtown Cleveland for shopping a few times and even to an art museum once. And I'm going to say this. I started wondering about Barbara, you guys. One, she's nowhere near as attractive as Beverly, okay? And Beverly was obviously getting a lot of attention from guys that maybe Barbara wished she was getting. In turn, that can cause somebody to be jealous. I'm just saying, we've seen cases like this happen in the past too.
My only, I mean, and I'm with you, and I'm with Paula thinking that it could be Barbara. But the thing is, could a teenage girl inflict that much damage? I mean, it can happen. I know it's happened before, but it's so rare that we see a teenage girl sit there and do that type of overkill.
But a woman scorned, though. I mean, you
That's
know,
true. That's
you
true.
know that, and I keep telling you, and you agree with the stabbings being full of rage, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolute nothing but rage. So it makes me wonder, was she jealous of all these boys that liked her, that she wasn't getting the attention from, and basically said, I'll show you, you don't deserve this. If you're gone, I'll get the attention, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So that's why I've been thinking about Barbara as a possibility too. But, and the fact that she heard, quote unquote, supposedly heard noise, knocked on the door, didn't, something's about that's just wrong to me. I don't know if she just was being an idiot, but I just don't know. You know what I mean? He's right. You know, this is a teenage girl as well.
I mean, and it would explain why she wasn't SA'd. And, you know, it could be that Barbara was trying to make it look like an SA. And that's why her clothes and everything were the way that they were.
Yeah, because I have a feeling if a man did this, that there would have actually been an SA instead of what could have happened, what did happen. You know what I mean? Just pulling the shirt up and ripping it off to make it look like something, which could have happened during a struggle too. Instead of actually SAing the girl. That's the problem I had the issue with. So, I don't know, guys. I've thought about Barbara from listening to the other parts of this for a minute now, so I don't know. But a few of these people sound like they could have done this, truly. I will say that Marie... Oh, wait. I think I skipped something here. Here we go. Due to Beverly being among the most attractive girls in Garfield Heights and having many male admirers, she was easily the best with males in her friend group. According to people who went to school with the girls in Beverly's friend group, Margie didn't have a jealous bone in her body and seemed to be the only one that didn't mind all the attention that Beverly got from boys. See, here we go. From boys and young men. Apparently, Barbara did. There it is. Teenagers, adolescents get really mad about things like these. I will say that Marie Vannick's original statement to GHPD that Beverly said, I have to go. But then in her statement of January 4th or January 5th of 65, Marie Vannick started saying that Beverly said that Barbara was at the door. See? Regardless of it, Beverly indeed specified that Barbara was at the door. It seems that Beverly's grandmother thought Barbara did it. Okay. And it could have been Barbara with somebody else with her. Who knows? I'm just saying. I don't know. That's a shaky one for me. Additionally, in one of the newspapers, multiple years after Beverly's murder, her father, Thaddeus Jarosz, said that he differs with Horrigan's belief about Beverly's killer, as Horrigan was sure it was a male, and Thaddeus thought it was a female. She is being shielded from arrest by relatives, said Thaddeus. Thaddeus was definitely referring to Barbara in his statement. Barbara's family, the Klanowskis, were a very wealthy and respected family. Barbara's grandfather owned the Bank of Cleveland. Oh, boy. And the Klanowski family was associated with Benjamin Stefanski and Stefanski family, who owned the Third Federal Savings and Loan. So they're a money family. Because of this, and from 1964 to now, people have speculated that Barbara was Beverly's killer or was at least involved in Beverly's killing, and her family covered it up. Barbara's brother, who became a lawyer, has been quite nasty with people who could even consider the possibility of his sister and or family being involved, and has made both legal threats and personal threats to people over the years. The personal threats being violent. Hold on a minute here. I got a Barbara Klanowski. I wonder. Okay, sorry guys. In 2008, before John Pallion was cleared, he spoke with author and investigative journalist James Renner, and Pallion said that he was being framed and there was a cover-up going on, just like Thaddeus Jarosz. It seems like John Pallion was talking about Barbara and or the Klanowski family, but didn't want to mention any names. Because of the fact that Beverly was stalked throughout the year of 1964, leading to her murder at the end of the year, she was definitely super cautious. So she mostly would have had her doors locked and likely would only let someone in she trusted. Now think about that too, you guys. Women are smart. Again, a woman scorned. And she could have set up all these things and the hang-up calls and did all these things just to get to Beverly as well. That's another thing. Barbara would have been one of these people that she trusted, since she was expecting Barbara that day, that she would have been most likely person that Beverly would have let in. Barbara reported hearing loud music and a loud sound like a dresser falling when she was waiting at the door, but that could have just been a cover story, as she was actually inside the house and had the music turned on. That's a good point. Nobody was there.
The thing is that if she heard the loud music and heard that sound and didn't go in to check on her friend, that just makes her look that much more guilty.
I agree. Or didn't say something to somebody about that until way after. Come on, until the girl was found. No, this isn't greed. If Barbara did this, this is jealousy, pure jealousy, and still considered a crime of passion. That's wild. So, nobody was there with nor saw Barbara waiting at Beverly's door. Barbara claimed to have been running late, and the only person to support that was Barbara's mom, who was a music teacher and said to be a crazy person by former students. Like I mentioned in the Bruce entry, parents would usually protect their children, even if they think or know that their child's guilty. Barbara did not meet up with their other friend, Margie, who Beverly and Barbara were originally supposed to meet with. Margie had to call Barbara to find out what happened. The fact that Barbara didn't meet up with Margie and didn't even call to let her know that she or Beverly weren't coming is suspicious. That is true. Why didn't she go meet with Margie even though Beverly didn't? You know what I mean? This could mean that Barbara went home to wash off any evidence on her and either forgot to call Margie or just didn't want to call Margie because, the way she'd be acting probably. One of the two possible downsides of this story is that Barbara may not have had the strength to do all that to Beverly. Detective Carl Bogacki did say in the late 2010s that Barbara Klanowski and Margie Gorney had nothing to do with Beverly's murder, especially Barbara Klanowski. It would not have been possible. However, jealousy brings out the worst in people. That's 100% true. And if her family had money, this detective could have been paid off, bought off, whatever. You don't know. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying. Also, a young man called Gary Grayson, who was a classmate of someone that Beverly dated at Garfield Heights, picked Barbara up in his car a few blocks from Beverly's house near the time of her murder. Gary Grayson was driving in his 1958 Corvair on Turney Road. He was a year older than Beverly and Barbara. Gary was questioned but not given a polygraph, and he was admittedly in the area at the time of the murder and knew one of the people involved with Beverly that afternoon well enough for Barbara to get a ride from him. That would make him a friend of a friend, since it is believed that Beverly's killer may have gotten into a car after the dog scent stopped at McCracken. It makes one wonder if Gary Grayson was that driver and was actually waiting for Barbara as opposed to running into her. Carl Bugacki did not mention Gary Grayson by name when speaking in the late 2010s. Moreover, Beverly previously dated Barbara's cousin Stanley Klanowski, who was interviewed by police as well. Beverly was the one who broke it off with Stanley. According to Beverly, Stanley was misunderstood and troubled. Stanley didn't seem to pan out, although just like Barbara, he did not take a polygraph or give fingerprints DNA. Sorry. If Barbara was behind Beverly's murder, a possibility is that either Stanley or Gary were involved and helped carry out. Stanley may not have been over at Beverly's, and the breakup could have really messed him up. May not have been over Beverly, I'm sorry. When you add that along with Gary's whereabouts and Barbara's jealousy, a slim possibility emerges that Barbara and Stanley and or Gary were behind it. Regardless of which one of the two Barbara had helped her, they could definitely have gotten the job on Beverly done, since there was no DNA found under Beverly's fingernails and two methods of murder were used. Two killers is a definite possibility. I was thinking that too, about the two different things that were done. Vidoc's pick was an unnamed family friend in 2015. Lead Detective Carl Bugacki and GHPD got the most serious about the case since 2004. And in October of 15, they took the Beverly JAROZ case to the Vidocq Society, a highly regarded group crime-solving organization in Philadelphia. Carl described the Vidocq Society as a group of law enforcement officers that are the cream of the crop. They rise to the top. I'm just kidding. From profilers to FBI agents to detectives from all over. It's made up of 82 members who volunteer to serve as confidential consultants to assist law enforcement in solving difficult cold cases. And its 82 members are forensic professionals, current and former FBI profilers, criminologists, medical examiners, homicide investigators, forensic students, psychologists, polygraph examiners, and prosecutors and coroners. Interesting. GHPD and their lead detective, Carl Bugacki, presented a PowerPoint to the Vidocq Society, and the experts of the Vidocq Society were able to assist GHPD and bring light to a few things that they didn't know before. GHPD were able to develop even another suspect from that, someone who the Vidocq Society came up with, who was not previously on the list of persons of interest. They swore by their pick to GHPD after Beverly's sister appeared on Fox 8 News in March 2017. There was a tip that came into the Garfield Heights Police Department that named this person as a suspect. The GHPD lead detective at the time said that he also had access to the JAROZ family house and was at the house numerous times, and a family friend. Bugacki said that despite being a cautious girl, Beverly would have 100% let him in, and that there's no doubt about Beverly letting him in. Bugacki said Vidocq picks friends who were to be his alibi, did not confirm his story and whereabouts on 12/28 of 64. Vidocq Pick refused a polygraph test. A Facebook group about the case called Beverly JAROZ 1964 Ohio case of 16-year-old girl is a great place to get more information, and a YouTube channel called Words, Ideas, and Conversations. Hold on. Okay. Posted a very informative podcast episode on this yesterday. I recommend checking it out. Okay.
Well, to be fair, Paula, I'm just going to say those polygraph tests are junk science. And honestly, I would recommend anyone that I was advising not to take a polygraph test.
Yeah, they are junk science, and we've seen that proven time and time again. Hold on a minute here.
The whole reason why law enforcement uses polygraphs is because they think it will intimidate a possible suspect into confessing. So that's the whole reason behind it.
Yes, very good point. Let's see here. Hold on. 1 second. Good Lord. I'm already going backwards in my notes. There we go. Oh, thank you so much, Cap. Very good work on finding these cold cases. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying these. I really am. I think they're. I really enjoy covering these, and maybe one of these days it'll actually help us. Maybe we'll be able to do something to help with one of these. I don't. Okay, let's see how far along. Okay. I don't know, Mama Bear, Mom, Arctic. Do you guys have anything to add to this at all before we go any further?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm with Paula. The fact that she refused to give her fingerprints is highly suspicious.
Yeah, I never even really looked at Barbara at first that deep until thinking about it like I did now, like jealousy, and the fact that she was bothered by that kind of stuff. And I automatically got a new look at what this Barbara was, the fact that she comes from money. Go ahead, Mama Bear. I think you were going to say something. Or did you
I was
say
just saying, no, I didn't have anything to add.
Okay. Mom, anything at all?
No, very interesting case.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Really, it is. I don't know, but wow.
The thing that I'm thinking, though, and again, we have seen money play a big part in paying people off and everything, but if law enforcement is doing their job, I know that's a big if, they may have evidence that hasn't been made public that clears Barbara, and that's why they said that she is in no way possibly involved in this.
Very possibly. That's very true. Welcome, Molly. I see you. Sneaking in or not, I see you. Very, very possibly, folks. That's true. I might want to come back to this one later. So some of the statements on some of these, I've read comments that were made. I grew up a few streets over from the house that she was murdered in. Her father kept the house the same and wouldn't get rid of it in hopes the cops would come back and look for more evidence. That podcast is a really good podcast, and a conversation they had on this is very interesting. But we've been rolling for a long time so far, and I don't want to drag this one out. It's not closed at all, Critical. It's still an open case, just cold. I don't know. Anybody else have any statements or comments or questions or anything about this? Anybody? I see you. I don't know. I'd love to see an answer to this. I really would.
Well, I'm encouraged by the fact that the Vidocq Society is involved in it, and I also saw where they had used the VAC extraction method of DNA extraction, and they have submitted that. So hopefully, with that being the case, and with genealogical DNA being a thing today, that will help solve the case.
I agree. I'm going to play this last piece that came out. This is just a news piece that dropped 3 weeks ago on this, which is the newest piece of anything on this at all. And Carol, her sister's in here as well talking. So I agree with you on that, Paul. I wish we could see the interviews. I wish all that stuff was. I'm sure it's recorded, but being it's still open, they're not going to put any of that out. I don't believe. The
I
diary
don't know
thing.
about that. I mean, we've seen interviews and open cases before, interrogations and stuff. It's not like
Yeah.
it'll probably be on video, though. The most we will have probably is a crappy audio recording that you can barely hear through all the crackles and everything.
That's true too. Very true. That's true. I'll have to look and see if I can find any of that stuff. That'd be a great thing to go back over this with again. So let's see. Let's hear this real quick, and I think that'll bring us down to the end. So again, everybody, thank you for being here. Don't everybody take off yet. We're almost done. So
is News 5 at 11.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Van Metre in for Tracy Carless. It's one of the greatest mysteries in Northeast Ohio. A Garfield Heights teen gruesomely murdered, stabbed, and strangled in her own bedroom 60 years ago, and her case remains unsolved. But detectives say they are getting closer to possibly solving this case thanks to new interviews and advancements in DNA technology. News 5's Jeff Levkowicz talked with her sister, who hopes this will finally help them catch her sister's killer.
It was 60 years ago that Beverly JAROZ was killed inside the bedroom of this home. Her sister Carol hopes that the case will eventually be solved. Garfield Heights police and other groups dedicated to finding her killer believe that the truth is still out there.
Life for me has just begun. All my dreams.
December 28th is a day that Carol Bartos will never forget.
All my goals unreached. My life would have been in vain.
For 6 decades, Bartos and other loved ones hold an anniversary mass for her late sister, Beverly JAROZ, to celebrate her life that was taken too soon.
She was murdered 60 years ago today.
Beverly was stabbed more than 4.
awesome news. I was going to play that at the end. So Noah Page from Fort Lauderdale found safe. Awesome. Thank you, Arctic. Good to know. Absolutely, Walt. No problem, buddy.
40 times in the bedroom of her Garfield Heights home. The knife used was never found. Her killer never captured, and the case never solved. Carol was just 12 years old when the brutal murder happened.
Like, I was basically a little girl, just starting to figure out who I was, right? And she just seemed like she was very sophisticated, and she was beautiful, and she was not a Beatles person or anything like that. She listened to jazz and classical music.
Carol says Saturday's Mass is not just for her sister, but for everyone that has helped her through the years.
Well, it's surprising that so many
Thank
people
you,
do still remember her name. There's Facebook groups dedicated to her, and I still get people giving me tips and contacting me and telling me how much they remember her and how they wish this would be solved.
I was about 6 years old when this happened. So.
John Ferrato grew up in Garfield Heights, but really only got involved in the search for Beverly's killer 4 years ago. He and Scarlett Vinson became intrigued by the case. The two belong to a Facebook group dedicated to keeping Beverly's memory alive.
The minute I saw her face and I saw that beautiful school photo of her, I said, I'm going to devote every waking moment I have to her.
The two have looked at this case from every angle and have put out a 2-part documentary on YouTube called Beverly JAROZ 60 Years, Faith and Forgiveness. They believe they know who killed Beverly, and Ferrato says he's told that to police.
I'm going to reach out to Carol Bartos, her Beverly's sister, and see if she might want to join us and have another show on this, because this is such an old case that there needs to be something. So if Carol comes on and can talk and give us a little more information than what has been put out here, it might help in some sense. So that is something I'm going to be doing via Facebook and via the group and stuff like that. So we'll see. Keep your fingers crossed, and maybe we'll get to have her join us.
Beverly's diary was missing, and it's been missing ever since. The police don't have it. It was just taken. So the person who did this took the diary, and most people think, well, they...
See, that was something else I had an issue with Barbara about. I can't imagine a guy taking a diary, but Barbara, as our friend, that could be something. I don't know. Hey, Bonnie, good to see you, dear. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of it the wrong way, but that's just something I thought that I got going on too.
took it because maybe his name was in it. That's the most logical thing you think of right off the bat. But in my opinion, he took it as a trophy. I believe it's still around.
The two believe the killer was stalking the teen, always around her, and they believe he stalked her at her final resting place.
We didn't wake up one day and say, oh, this is the guy. You know, we're literally taking facts and we're following the breadcrumbs as anybody would logically. We're putting all the pieces together.
And so you can watch those videos and you can form your own opinion, but I'm looking for that smoking gun, and I'm going to look really hard for that. So is Scarlett.
We contacted Garfield Heights police to ask them about the case and the documentary's theory surrounding the identity of the killer. They told News 5 they're aggressively investigating the case and they hope to bring closure to Beverly's family and the community. They also have performed advanced MVAC DNA testing on key pieces of evidence, which has resulted in newly discovered DNA, interviews of witnesses, and surveillance. And they're asking anyone with any information about this case to contact their detectives. In Garfield Heights, I'm News 5's Jeff Left Coolidge.
All right. Well, there's that.
I do wish they had released the name of the suspect that the Vidocq Society came up with. I'd be curious to hear who that was.
Well, maybe if I can get Carol to join us, maybe she'd be able to give us that too. I think there's
That would
probably
be
more.
amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to try to reach out to her here soon, because she probably has things that in the news and things like that where we can get some realistic like pieces of info from. Do you know what I mean? So sounds like a plan to me. I think that's going to do it today, guys. 3:41. We're going on 4 hours. So I appreciate you guys very much. Mama Bear and Mom, thank you for being here. Arctic, you as well. I hope you feel better, brother. And I just posted the Monday meeting right after the show for the moderators, guys. Unless you have something to do, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be there. Other than that, I think that'll do it. Mom, Arctic, Mama Bear, do you have anything to add before we take off? About anything?
I've got a cold case premiere at 4 o'clock. If anyone wants to go over there and watch that.
4 o'clock? What time is it there now?
15 minutes from now.
Oh, well, maybe we'll do that then first, and then we'll have the meeting. Because I got 4:45. I forgot you're behind.
Yeah, I'm Central Time.
All right, well, run over there and check out Arctic's premiere first, folks, and then after that's over, I'll jump into voice and we can jump in there then. So thank you for that, all you guys. I appreciate you guys very much in chat. Don't forget to love yourselves and love each other because you guys are the beautiful people. Don't change a thing, and I will see you all very soon. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Make good choices.
Life's a journey, let's make every moment shine. Together we share our hearts so intertwined. Each time you tune in, we're dancing in sync. With every story told, just let your soul think. A little laughter, some love, we're flying high. As we wrap up this episode, it's not goodbye. News on the airwaves, spreading joy and cheer. Thanks for being with us, we'll see you right here. Kick back, take a breath, leave your worries behind. This podcast is magic, a treasure you'll find. With every moment shared, we light up the way. Join us next time for more laughs and play. A little laughter, some love, we're flying high. As we wrap up this episode, it's not goodbye. News on the airwaves, spreading joy and cheer. Thanks for being with us, we'll see you right here. Kick back, take a breath, leave your worries behind. This podcast is magic, a treasure you'll find. With every moment shared, we light up the way. Join us next time for more laughs and play. So hit that subscribe, Keep the vibe alive, we're riding this wave and it's set to thrive with smiles all around. Let's seize the day in this podcast family, worries drift away. A little laughter, some love, we're flying high. As we wrap up this episode, it's not goodbye. News on the airwaves, spreading joy and cheer. Thanks for being with us, we'll see you right here. So gather round friends, it's time to reflect. In this joyful moment, what's next to connect? Let's cherish the laughter, the joy that we spread. Together we'll thrive until our hearts are fed. See you next time with stories anew. Can't wait to share more with all of you. So hit that subscribe, keep the vibe alive. We're riding this wave and it's set to thrive with smiles all around. Let's seize the day in this podcast family, worries drift away. So hit that subscribe, keep the vibe alive. We're riding this wave and it's set to thrive with smiles all around. Let's seize the day in this podcast family, worries drift away. So gather round friends, it's time to reflect. In this joyful moment, what's next to connect? Let's cherish the laughter, the joy that we spread. Together we'll thrive until our hearts are fed. See you next time with stories anew. Can't wait to share more with all of you. See you next time with stories anew. Can't wait to share more with all of you. Life's